Did you? I was at the wife. I was at Coach's Bar.
I'd like to call the June 5th Planning Commission to order.
Ashley's not letting me know what she's got to say. Oop.
And I'd like to have us rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the roll call.
Ms. Knable, Ms. Dobson, Mr. Earhart,
Here.
Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Aravalo,
Here.
Ms. Crevier. Here. Mr. Sly,
Here.
Ms. Squire. Here. Mr. Morse.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Too late to say here.
Oh, there you are.
Full of agenda. Questions? Issues? If not, any changes? Okay. If not, all those in favor of approving the agenda as noted on the right?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Oh.
Motion. No one, but is the motion to approve the agenda as published? I move to approve the agenda as published.
Citizen participation, I don't know if anybody signed up. If anybody would like to speak though, even though you did not sign up, this is a time that if you've got a concerned issue that you'd like to speak to the council about, the commission about, you're free to do so. If not, we'll move on. SS 4A Comprehensive Safety Plan.
Approval minutes.
Approval, I'm sorry. Approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? 700. Approved. Okay, you got the floor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allison Abel. I'm the city engineer here at the city of Spring Hill. I've met most of you. We have been working diligently over since October on the Safe Streets for All program. The city of Spring Hill received a grant from the US DOT to do this program. We had a lot of public engagement. We did some technical analysis. We hired an engineer to help us out with the traffic information, the technical analysis, and also the public engagement. And we wanted to present our findings tonight to you. We've got boards located around the room that kind of summarizes some of our findings and some of the recommendations we have from the plan. And we're going to do a formal presentation for you guys tonight. What we're looking for from you is a recommendation to the City Council to adopt the SS4A plan. We've got a lot of things that are going on right now. We not only are working on this plan, but we are looking to, from this plan, this is the framework for us to move forward with doing capital improvements throughout the city, whether it's roadway or sidewalks or other things. And having this plan is key to engaging in some of those grant opportunities for us to make our funding go a little bit further. So with that, I would like to introduce a couple of special guests that we have in the audience. The project manager for this was Jay Aber from HDR. And we also have Taylor McHenry from HDR that also helped out with this plan and has been a great resource with helping us to get the grant application. So with that, Jay, you want to come on up and do the presentation?
Thank you, Ms. Abel. So I am Jay Aber, members of the commission. Thank you for having us here tonight. We're excited to present our draft final comprehensive safety action plan, the Safe Streets for All plan for Spring Hill. This is something, as Allison mentioned, we've been working very hard on for the last 9 months or so. Got a lot of great input from the public, a lot of good insights from this, and it's been a real pleasure working with your city staff and your public on this plan. So I'm going to go through a relatively brief presentation. I have the plan up as well. You all have the plan on your desk. I wanted to give plenty of time if you have comments or questions or want to flip through and look at any specific sections. We also have appendices, a couple hundred pages of appendices. If you want to get really into the weeds, we have that as well. So I'll just go through a little background of why safety, why we're talking about this in Spring Hill right now, the planning process that we've gone through, and then very briefly cover the action plan and recommendations. And then, of course, we can bring up the plan itself to look at any of those recommendations in detail as well. So why we're talking about safety in Spring Hill right now is really because of the crashes that have happened. So between 2014 and 2023, there were 379 traffic crashes on streets in and around Spring Hill. 8 of those were fatal crashes, 42 of those were serious injury crashes, and over 300 of those were minor injury crashes. And when we talk about this, a lot of times we can kind of get lost in the numbers, just thinking about the numbers, but we also recognize that each one of these crashes represents people, valuable members of the community, family members, children, parents, friends, coworkers that were involved in these crashes. And we actually asked Spring Hill residents in our online survey if they had been personally affected by these crashes, whether they knew someone who'd been injured or killed in the crash, or whether they'd been injured themselves. And almost 70% of the people who took our survey said that they did know someone who had been injured or had been injured themselves. So there's an enormous human cost to this, social cost and cost to the community. But we can also look at this in social value terms and economic terms, and there are costs to crashes happening. There are healthcare costs, there are lost productivity costs, there are many costs involved in these things. And when we look at that, add that up for these crashes, it adds up to over $200 million in economic cost to the community of Spring Hill. So there's a human cost and also an economic cost. Well, we're talking about safety these days. We're talking a little different than we did in the past. In the past, we talked a lot about behavior and trying to perfect people's driving, but we know that we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. I'm not a perfect driver. Sometimes we make poor decisions. Sometimes we're rushing to get to work. We're late. We're going too fast. We get distracted. And we know it's not realistic to perfect everybody's behavior all the time and have everybody be perfect drivers. So what we're thinking about with the safe systems approach is acknowledging that people are going to make mistakes, but then thinking about how can we change the system completely so that those mistakes don't result in somebody being killed or seriously injured. So when we think about safe system approach, we're thinking about these different pillars, a very holistic and comprehensive way to look at safety and thinking about the people and their behavior and who's involved, but also the vehicles they're driving, the speeds that they're driving at, the roads they're driving on, and then also if a crash does occur, that post-crash care and get our emergency responders to the scene as quickly as possible. So within that safe system approach, we wanted to focus on reducing traffic fatalities and injuries, creating safer streets for all users, and supporting growth and livability in the community. So as Ms. Abel mentioned, the United States Department of Transportation did fund 80% of this project. This was part of the Safe Streets for All discretionary grant program that was authorized under the bipartisan infrastructure law, and the city of Spring Hill paid for the remaining 20%. This plan was set up to guide the next 20 years of work in the community for safety. Safety is really a long-term commitment. So thinking about what can we do today, what can we do in the next 2-3 years, next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And again, thinking about not just safety, but also the health, the well-being, giving people the ability to walk, feel more safe to walk, bike, get out there and do recreational activities safely as well. So I'm going to talk through the planning process itself, and a lot of this was really focused on engagement with the public. We know this issue is something that people are very engaged with. People are very passionate about improving safety. We heard this over and over again in the community when we were out talking to members of the public. So the community engagement events was a really important part of that. We had 5 public events. We really wanted to go where the people were rather than just having public meetings, because we know it's challenging for people to take off time off their schedule to come to a special public meeting. So 4 of these events were out in the community, hometown holidays, daffodil days, going to the library, having coffee at City Hall. Really able to get to a lot of people that maybe not normally engage in public activities. But then, of course, we also did have our open house a couple weeks ago here across the hall here to really have the formal presentation of the draft action plan and projects. In addition to the public engagement, we had an advisory committee. It was a very active advisory committee. We met 3 times throughout the process. We had a lot of great engagement from many members of city staff, police department, Fire District 1, USD 230, different other agencies. KDOT was a big part of this. We know US 169 highway or K7 highway is where a lot of these crashes are happening. KDOT shares a similar concern with safety, so they were very active in the advisory committee as well. So we really use that committee to bounce ideas off of, to learn from them, to test our ideas, to ask them, are we going in the right direction? Are these the right actions? Are these the right projects? And learned a great deal from them. In addition to these in-person events, we had online engagement, which hopefully many of you saw this online. We reached 130 residents with our online survey, that we had a lot of specific questions about behavioral, different things with behavior. Again, the kind of human costs and how people were affected by this. So we got a lot of great information about that. And we also had an interactive web map where people could go on and say if they had areas of concern, if they had identified opportunities for improvement, or if they had other ideas. So we got a lot of great input from the public through those 2 online resources. The next part of this, looking at the public, going from the public engagement, which we learn a great deal from public engagement, but we can also learn a lot from the crash data itself. The police reports are very comprehensive in where the crashes are happening, what are the contributing circumstances, what kind of roads they're on. So we did do a transportation safety analysis. We look at those different contributing circumstances, and not just a behavioral aspect, but also what kind of roads were these on? What was the land use context? Was it agricultural? Was it commercial? Was it residential? These kinds of things. We could come up with a good picture of what's happening in the community. And what was really great about this exercise was learning through the crash data and hearing the same thing from the public. So the public definitely has a good understanding of safety and concerns for safety, and we can see that represented in the crash data as well. A big part of the data analysis is really identifying priority areas for where to make improvements, because we have a lot of information from an engineering perspective, especially from a transportation roadway perspective, how to make roads safer. But we know resources are not unlimited, funding is not unlimited, so we really need to target our efforts to the specific areas of the greatest need. So a big part of that was this high injury network that we created, where we show the areas with the highest concentration of crashes throughout the city. And on that high injury network, those red lines there, those are about 25% of the streets in and around Spring Hill, but they represent over 80% of the fatal and serious injury crashes. So we don't have to go and fix every single street in the area, but we really have a concentrated challenge that we can tackle. So we use this data analysis, the public engagement, the advisory committee to come up with a set of guiding principles for the plan. And these are the principles that we use as we're making decisions. We're putting together the action plan of what we wanted to focus on. So of course we want to focus on safety for all people, no matter how they're traveling through the community. We want this to be very collaborative. We know a lot of these challenges are on county roads or on state jurisdictional roads. We want to collaborate with those agencies, also with our emergency responder partners. We want to be very proactive. We know Spring Hill is growing quickly, fastest growing city in the state, 3rd year in a row. And so we know that just because there is a road where there haven't been crashes to date, doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily have risk factors that as the community grows, as new subdivisions are built, as new schools are built, there might be safety challenges in the future. We want to be proactive and work to prevent those. Of course, we want that focused action. We know budgets aren't unlimited, so we need to really focus our efforts to what's most impactful. And as I mentioned up front, this is something that is a very long-term proposition, so commitment to this effort to safety and showing progress and having transparency is important as well. We also developed a set of safety focus areas, looking at the high injury corridors, again, focusing our efforts there. Right-of-way departure crashes, where over half of the crashes, that's where a vehicle leaves the road, hits fixed object or overturns. A lot of the higher speed kind of county style roads are where those are happening. The high speed intersections as well. Out in the county, we heard a lot from the residents of intersections like 199th and Ridgeview near the schools, where we have high-speed traffic, stop control, maybe not much street lighting, and we do see a pattern of crashes there. Walking and bicycling facilities is something we heard every single time we talk to people. Sidewalks, 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 crosswalks, the ability to walk and bike around town, trails. And we don't have a huge history of crashes among pedestrians and cyclists in the community, but we know it's important, and we know how quickly an event can turn into a fatal crash or a serious injury crash when it involves a pedestrian or cyclist. Speeding was another big focus area, which I think was one of the things that when we talked to the public was one of the things the public really didn't have as much of an intuitive understanding of. When we asked them about behaviors that they saw as dangerous, they saw not wearing your seatbelt, being intoxicated, distracted driving as extremely dangerous, but speeding was only moderately dangerous. But when you look at the crash statistics, about 20% of the serious crashes involve speeding, 20% involve distraction, and 20% involved intoxication. So speeding, when we look at the crash data, is just as dangerous or high risk of an activity, but the public didn't see it as such. So that was something with some of our educational recommendations in the action plan to really focus on speeds and speed enforcement as well. Also, teen drivers and older drivers are overrepresented in the crash data. So I will go through briefly again the action plan and recommendations and what we have in the plan. I won't dwell in too much detail here because we have the plan itself and we can look at any of these that we have. But the plan does include a set of recommended countermeasures. These are things that were really well supported by the public or really well supported by data analysis. Some of those top ones were roundabouts, which have a really fantastic safety record. In a lot of places are 100% reduction in fatal crashes and serious injury crashes. Sidewalks, again, is something we heard over and over. Obviously, there's fantastic safety treatment to get pedestrians off the road and onto the sidewalk. And also access management. As we're building these roads out, being diligent about thinking about the interactions with driveways, with minor roads. This goes for US 169 highway, but also some of the county roads as we build them out, thinking about can we manage the number of driveways, can we use medians to manage those crossing conflicts and left turn conflicts. So these countermeasures, and there's a whole lot more in the plan itself, but these countermeasures are what we would think about applying on the projects that we identified. So we identified 25 projects, about 30 miles, a little under 30 miles of total improvements throughout the community. They're grouped into different jurisdictions because we know the city has different levels of influence on these jurisdictions. We have 5 projects that are on the KDOT facilities on K7 or on US 169. We have 4 projects that are fully county road projects that are fully outside the city boundary. And then we have 16 projects that are either fully within the city limits or split the jurisdiction between city and county. Now with the city project particularly, I think 17 miles of road is a lot of road to reconstruct. That's a lot of funding. But if we're thinking about this as a 20-year plan, we have a little over 17 miles of road to address. The city right now, between the different funding sources, whether it's city funds, county funds, other funds, rebuilds about 1 mile of roads per year. So it's not a completely unrealistic amount of roadway to think about over the next 20 years. We've just got a list of the city priority projects, which I won't go through each one by one, but they are prioritized. We have our previously programmed projects that are already funded for construction that we want to see how we can incorporate more, even more safety elements into. But then the priority 1 projects, priority 2 projects, and priority 3 projects. And some of those top priority 1 projects, 223rd Street from US 169 east to Woodland Road, Ridgeview Road from 191st to 199th, and Ridgeview Road from 199th to 207th. These are roads that had the highest number of crashes and were also things that we heard over and over again from the public that they really wanted to address. So then we have our program of projects, our countermeasures. We also have the action plan itself. We have short-term actions, medium-term actions, and long-term actions, thinking about how we can do these things in the next couple years in the short term, maybe out to the 10-year horizon in the medium term, and out to 20 years in the long term. A couple of the short-term items we have here, some of these things, passing a Vision Zero resolution, committing the city to eliminating deaths and serious injuries, was a top thing that we heard for the commitment. Also establishing a transportation safety board was something that was an idea from the advisory committee that people felt very passionate about, that if we don't have a body that's really overseeing this, overseeing the implementation, doing annual checkups, annual implementation plans, that it wouldn't be as effective. So establishing that board of citizens, doing annual planning, implementation plan and reporting plans, and also pursuing grant funding opportunities. There's the Safe Streets for All grant funding opportunity that Ms. Abel mentioned up front that my colleague Taylor McHenry is working on that grant application right now. It's a great opportunity for more funding, and there's a lot of other grant opportunities out there as well. Another thing I want to point out in the short-term actions is the police enforcement as well. This is something that would have, of course, budget implications, but we saw Spring Hill Police Department does a really great job. Sergeant Reithold was very involved in our advisory committee. I had a lot of great insight. They don't have a huge police force to be out there enforcing as much as they would like. So thinking about how can we maybe increase the amount of officers we have, maybe increasing funding for overtime pay to do even more enforcement, especially related to speed enforcement. So that's what I have for the presentation itself. And again, I flew through some of those action steps and projects because I have that up here. If we wanted to talk through any of those, if you had questions about any of those action steps in particular, any of those projects, I'd be happy to answer them.
I've got a couple of questions. I'm curious how the 379 accidents over a 9-year period compared to other communities our size. Are we worse, average, or below average?
Spring Hill has done a lot of work over the years to improve safety. So this plan is really a continuation of those efforts. And actually what we're seeing is a decrease in serious crashes, injury crashes in the community, which is much different than most places. We've seen a big increase over the last 10 years in most communities. So I think Spring Hill is among the lower end in terms of fatal crash rate. So again, done very good work over the preceding 10, 15, 20 years to improve safety. But of course, as we think about it, really one fatal crash is one too many. But I do think the city has done a good job in focusing on safety and focusing on enforcement to keep it a safe community.
Yeah, I think you're right. And one of the things that I've always appreciated is whenever the police department or the police chief does their annual report, it's interesting how many stops they make every year and how less than half of those stops, maybe it's even 30%, but result in a citation being written. So that tells me they're really doing it for safety reasons, versus revenue generation. So I think that helps a lot. Another question I had was there any analysis in the crash statistics related to the types of vehicles that were involved? For example, I'm really referring to like passenger cars versus commercial truck traffic.
So we don't, in the data that we have from the state, we don't have detailed vehicle data. In terms of different types of vehicles, we do have a marker for commercial vehicles versus non-commercial vehicles. So most of those are semi-trucks. And I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's a very low percentage. I think it was 1 or 2% involved commercial vehicles. So the majority of these are people, driving around town, going about their business, not necessarily those commercial drivers of those semi-trucks.
Okay. I mean, I noticed like where I live along Ridgeview, it's definitely a hot spot. I mean, Ridgeview from 183rd to 191st, there's, 15 yellow dots. And I've personally, witnessed at least 2 that involved, one was a semi and one was a concrete truck. So, one of my concerns is the impact of truck traffic on passenger car safety as the amount of traffic increases on our, surface streets. And so that's why I kind of asked if you had looked into that. Does your plan make any recommendations on specific road improvements, like, this should go from this category road to that category road?
This plan does not go into that level of detail. So we do have a little bit of detail on the projects themselves. But what we really wanted was use this plan as a way to prioritize the locations for these improvements and to provide that guidance for those best practices for those locations, like the roundabouts, the access management, those kinds of things. Partly just to give the city some flexibility moving forward and not try, especially thinking about these projects that might be 10 or 20 years and being very prescriptive in this specific type of improvement.
Sure. That makes sense. Those are all my questions. Thank you. Great presentation.
Can we talk about the grants for a minute?
Yes, absolutely.
I've got so many little questions running here. Is this a one-time grant, or is this a renewable grant? Or is this we win this grant, we can go out after more? Is this a grant that the city has to meet so many dollars, or can you give us some more insight into the grant?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I might call up my colleague, Mr. McHenry, to talk more about the grants because he's really the grant specialist.
Yeah, so there's going to be multiple opportunities to apply for funding. We, like Ms. Abel said, that we are working on an implementation grant to fund some of these top priority projects, which Jay listed here or
Right.
posted here on here. So yeah, there'll be this year, and then next year we'll also have another opportunity to apply for funding as well. After fiscal year 26, there isn't any programmed funds for the program. However, we're seeing that the administration seems pretty favorable towards the program. So we're hopeful that they continue to fund the program after fiscal year 26. So
But are these, the city has to meet so many dollars, or?
right, yeah. So it's the city. Yeah, city's required to provide 20% match. Now there is a organization within the state of Kansas that provides. There's a pot of money that they allocate to local municipalities to help them with their match money. And so we've actually been helping Allison utilize those funds as well. So, and that organization is called the Kansas Infrastructure Hub, and they will give out match money to help with your match. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Allison, do you see this recommendations or short-term and midterm and long-term objectives as impacting the CIP that the city does?
We will include this action plan within our CIP. So this will be a good guide for us. This is perfect timing because we're actually working on the budget and CIP for next year. So we will roll a lot of these recommendations into next year's CIP and into our 5-year CIP. So this is just another guide for us to go by to help with that. One thing I wanted to point out with the USDOT grants, to circle back to your question about the funding, this was $150,000, $250,000 program that it cost us to do the study. We paid 20%. Actually, we paid less because we only paid $12,500. That was the extent of our local match for $250,000 worth of a study. And that was thanks to the Kansas Infrastructure Hub. So I wanted to kind of cover that. But there is a significant resource out there in that Kansas Infrastructure Hub to help out cities just like ours. So anyway, hopefully that answered that, just to kind of give you a magnitude of how we benefited with this one in particular. And we're going to continue to look for those opportunities to partner so that we can get these things done. And then that will help alleviate some of the pressure off of our future CIP so that we can utilize some of those funds on multiple projects so that we can put in more sidewalk and put in more roadway each year and not have as much of a burden on our budget.
Sure. No, I think a number of the items that you got mentioned in the report really align themselves with some of the discussion we had as we looked at the comprehensive plan for the city. So, any other comments, questions?
Is this plan like finalized for the suggestions for the projects, the city street projects? Is that kind of, yeah, I guess finalized if this were to be approved with what would be the plan going forward?
So I think next week at council, if this is approved, then, you know, it would be approved document. At that point, of course, it'd always be amended. But I think one thing we wanted to talk to you about at this meeting was to make sure that you were comfortable with moving this forward to council. So if you do have any specific recommendations on any of the projects and the priority, and if you have questions, we could always talk through, you know, how we came up with those. But yeah, we're certainly open to suggestions from you all tonight to make any edits we need to before we go to council next week.
Okay, interesting.
I have a simple question, but I apologize if it is out of order. On page 49 of this packet that you gave me, it shows 175th Street, highlighted in red on west and the east side of the highway. And I thought that I saw when we were looking through which ones were like the most important, the way that you guys had them listed out, that it looked like 175th Street West was like higher impact. I guess what determines, is it just the amount of accidents that happen on the east side versus the west side? Because it's red all the way across on these charts. So where can I see those numbers? On 175th Street.
Oh.
So it had the west side slated as being more important, if that makes sense, than the east side. So I guess I'm curious as to where those numbers are to see. Because this is all red through here.
Question. Major
Mhm.
accidents and
Yeah,
deaths along 169, 5 out of 8 deaths on 169.
this is prioritized
Major,
over this.
first.
So I'm just kind of curious
that's right.
why this side.
And most of the serious accidents are also along.
Put a light in here.
Yeah, so I have the map here that shows the actual crash location, specific crash location. So 175th, this map is
What
rotated.
page are you on? That way I can.
Let's see.
717.
Page 17, yeah. So this is the actual crash locations themselves. So part of it being on the high injury network and on as a recommended project is because of the intersection at 169. And, you know, most of those issues are related to the highway, but they're certainly also related to how 175th Street approaches the highway. We know we've got those curves there, we've got some hills, we've got the traffic signal. Potentially some challenges. We do have a fatal crash west of 169 on 175th Street. I don't believe that was actually related to the intersection. I think that was a single vehicle crash and some other minor injury crashes. Then going over to Lone Elm, we have another serious injury crash over there. On the east side, we don't have as many of those severe crashes, some more minor injury crashes. In terms of prioritization, I think it's also important to note that we prioritize them separately for the city street projects, the county road projects, and the highway projects. So I think when we think about this, obviously for the city today, the things that we exert the most control over is, of course, our city streets. So, you know, especially 175th west of the highway is fully outside the city limits. So that's a top priority county road intersection or county road segment. But again, probably wouldn't be the city's number one priority to pursue funding for, pursue improvements since it is in the county. But again, we did think it was important to look at those roads outside the city limits because the city's growing so quickly that if there was some recommendation for annexation in the future, for example, you might want to take that into consideration, that maybe there are some safety issues on that road that could impact the decision for annexation or development in that area.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Do we have, when you're looking at the priority on priority 2 projects, do we have communication from the railroad on the railroad crossing?
So there is a separate grant program, the Rail Crossing Elimination Program. That's another bipartisan infrastructure law program. This stretch of railroad has received funding to do a study for rail cross elimination. And it's not just elimination, but it's also improvement.
Right.
So the text of the plan does mention that, in that these are all of the remaining grade crossings in the Spring Hill area on the BNSF rail line, and those would all be intersections that would be studied for improvement as part of that rail crossing elimination grant. So there would be certainly a lot of coordination with the railroad as that grant and as that plan goes forward.
And does any of the realignment of Webster Street have anything to do with the 223rd?
In terms of adding 223rd to this, or the potential
Just the
solutions?
priority projects.
So 223rd, there are, one of the serious crashes is on Webster, just north of 223rd. There was a pedestrian serious injury crash just north of that intersection. There weren't other crashes on Webster to put it on as a priority project in that location. But thinking about the number of crashes on 223rd and also that crash just off of 223rd, it's, especially by the highway, it's somewhat of a challenging corridor because we have so many closely spaced intersections. So I think one of those solutions of thinking about how does Webster Street align in the future to meet 223rd,
Right.
and what does that intersection look like? Generally spacing that further from the interchange is beneficial, certainly for safety. It does cause challenges with the existing road, Webster south of there. And so I know there's been some thoughts about roundabouts on that corridor, which would be really an ideal safety treatment on that corridor, because then the access could be maintained on Webster to the south without negatively impacting the businesses. You wouldn't be able to take a left turn out of the development, but you could turn right and make an easy U-turn at the roundabout, or vice versa. So I think realigning Webster development in that area, that would all certainly be in that conversation about what does, we've identified 223rd as a safety priority area, and some of those countermeasures. But I think, there's a lot happening in that area. So I think all of that would definitely kind of come into that conversation.
I mean, your first one on there is 223rd from 169 to Woodland. So with that being said, that realignment of Webster Street, I think we need to definitely, when we're talking CIP, I think we need to make sure that we're including all of that at the same time and not putting cart before horse we need to make sure that we're getting all of that in there at the same time and balancing that out. Otherwise we're not.
They are working on a plan right now. There's a plan being constructed with several different variables and several different alignments and all. It's just not ready yet to be presented to you guys as well as the governing body or put on the CIP. It is in conjunction with a grant, though, for sidewalks. So that's why it's all being studied.
Well,
This is just showing the areas that need to be focused on, and then staff and engineering basically will go in, engineering public works, and present different alternatives to alleviate those problem areas. So,
And I understand that. And I
but, so we are working on
It's
it.
a one foot in front of the other, but if you're asking for what planning commission sees and what we need to put one priority in front of the other to present to city council, I just want to make sure that we're thinking outside of the box instead of just looking at priority 1, 2, and 3 and saying, sure, that looks great, but yet we're not considering the realignment of Webster when it's 223rd.
Right. Unfortunately, it just isn't quite ready. And then, like I said, they're also working on the sidewalk area to improve safety in that also. Pedestrian safety is just as much looked at in our side on this. Although it, you know, it may not have focused on that in the study, but it is something we're looking at. So, yeah, it is being reviewed.
Yeah, so if that's something you guys want, today is the day to provide that kind of feedback. We do have a 223rd Street on our recommendations. We could look at realignment of Webster and adding that as a priority because that does go back to the safety. Pulling that intersection away from the influence and the ramps at 169, that will help improve safety along 223rd Street. So I think that's a good idea for us to include that within the study as maybe one of the recommendations. But as Pat mentioned, we've been working with HNTB on the 223rd Street corridor. We're going to be presenting that hopefully to you guys maybe as soon as the next meeting or here soon to show you kind of what we're thinking as far as that corridor. And then we also received a carbon emissions grant from KDOT to put in a loop trail in that triangular section along Webster, 223rd Street and up Victory, so that we can go ahead and put that trail in so that we do have a walking path. And hopefully we'll get that constructed here in the next couple of years.
That's my only takeaway is if we're not ready to do those to match them up, then maybe one should drop down to two and two should become one. That's all I don't know which way we need to go with that. You guys know more of what's happening in the offices than what we do, but that's what I would see as needing to play out and play together than.
Well, and we could just update the 223rd Street to include the
Right.
alignment with Webster, so it doesn't change too much of your plan, and that could be one of those projects that kind of goes hand in hand.
So one thing I noticed that kind of stuck out almost as a red flag to me was under the previously programmed city projects section, the fifth bullet point. It's the 199th Street from US 169 to Webster Street. Basically saying that increased traffic, there's congestion and queuing with backups from basically that stoplight is what I was understanding, which then kind of brings me to the point of, are we going to run into issues with making changes and seemingly improvements, but then we go into, oh shoot, now we have this issue, now we have this issue. And correct me if I'm wrong, but as I read that, to me, that seems very much because of the new business there and the stoplight on 199th causing those backups onto 169, which to me is kind of frustrating that it's like, well, that's wasted tax dollars or whatever the case may be, headaches with traffic and everything during that construction. Is that going to be an issue with other things?
Sure, I'll address that if that's okay. So we have one already approved there, Prebes. And as we're working on others in that area, we are proposing, along with any other development in there, to widen that out. So basically and that street going into Quick Trip is private drive. But basically from there, we would widen that street out all the way around the bend to try and control or help alleviate any type of backup. And in this next phase of putting signalization at 191st, the city is then going to have to take ownership of the light at 199th. And in doing that, then there can be more attention paid to timing of the signalization. So, because right now we own one and work on it and we try, but that a lot of it really is timing issues. I've been there, but then the other thing is we will be widening that out around that loop.
Do you know when that's gonna be?
Prebes was approved 5 years ago or something of that nature. We are back in discussions on that, and then we also have another one that we're working on right now in that area, that most likely that one will be coming to you guys. Actually, you've seen at one time a preliminary of it. It'll be coming to you here soon, and we'll get through the process on that and work on all those improvements at the same time.
And through KDOT, they have a Transportation Engineering Assistance Program, it's called TEAP, that they pay 100% for cities to look at small traffic engineering issues. And we are submitting an application to study this area in front of Quick Trip because you see it every day. It's not just during rush hour, not during the school peak time or whatever. You've got a lot of backups in certain areas. So changing the signal timing, changing the geometrics of the area, widening the lanes, that kind of thing, or even just changing the pavement markings. So small changes like that could make a huge improvement for traffic flows. So I think with that in the study, that's what we were contemplating, was at least let's try to look at some of these incremental changes that we can make with signal timing, pavement marking, and widening the lanes to help enhance the traffic flows in that area specifically.
You mentioned and this commission has a lot of interest on sidewalks. And I didn't know whether whether the plan will get specific enough to say, and here's some suggestions of where sidewalks are needed because they lead to a park or they lead to a school or whatever, and I didn't know whether you went that much detail later.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we heard from the public as well. Sidewalks are really important. Something we were happy to see was that the city has the sidewalk strategy document that outlined a lot of those locations, those priority locations, more based on recreation and access to different areas. So one of our short-term action items here is to prioritize the sidewalk and crosswalk expansion, but really look back to that previous plan for the recommendations in there, but also maybe think about reprioritizing some of those things in terms of safety. Most of the things they had prioritized in there aligned with the Hydro Network and where people were concerned with safety, but there might be a few throughout there that might want to be moved up in the prioritization through that sidewalk plan.
Good, thank you.
So we do have some specific areas that we do know about, and the city is working hard on trying to have the maintenance program take care of installing some of these sidewalks, and Jacob Spear, our public works director, is working on that. But I thought maybe we could take some time to highlight the map in front of you is 7 different areas that the city, or 6 different areas. 6 different areas that the city is looking at to make some enhancements. So through the implementation grant, that application is due here in a few weeks. We have these areas that we're going to highlight within that grant application, one of which is does include some sidewalks. So Taylor, do you want to kind of go through some of those areas and give them an idea of what we were thinking for the grant application?
Sure, yeah, specifically we're looking at sidewalk improvements along South Street here from 169 to kind of the existing crosswalks and sidewalks over that kind of connect to the school. So it offer connectivity from all these different houses here to the schools over to the east. So that's going to be one project. There'll also be some intersection improvements along 169 at 215th, and then 107 and Lone Elm. And so those will be the improvements along 169, and then there'll be several other intersection improvements, be roundabouts at these other intersections along Ridgeview. And there's already a roundabout here at 199th, so it'd be kind of a continuation of that intersection there. It kind of looks similar. And then down at we talked a lot about 223rd and Victory. That's also on the list as well for intersection improvements there too, so.
Is the only one that you guys have plans for the sidewalk on South Street, 215th Street?
Correct, for this application.
On the north or south side of the road?
It would be on the north side.
Yeah, we looked at the north side, and I think that has less of an impact on the property owners that live along there.
Right.
It works nicely with what's going on in the area and ties in with some of the existing infrastructure.
Those other intersections, I know that there's the roundabout where you just pointed out at 199th, so north of that, 191st. What is it that you guys are proposing doing there?
That would be a roundabout.
A roundabout?
So we would have 3 roundabouts in a row, one at 191st, one at 199th that exists, and then we would put one at 207th.
Is it not just on this map, but I also heard that there was possibly going to be one at Renner and 199th Street.
There's no roundabout planned there.
There's not?
No, so 199th and Renner, that's just going to be an improved intersection. We're improving 199th Street from the roundabout at at Ridgeview, and then it's just going to be a regular intersection that will
What
eventually
does
be
an improved intersection mean? Does it mean like turn lane?
It's going to be
There's commercial
curb
there?
and gut. So we're going to do a complete street. It's going to include curb and gutter, storm drains, trail, sidewalk. Eventually, it's going to be a 4-lane roadway. We only need a 2-lane roadway right now, but as we start to grow and develop as a community, a 4-lane roadway would be needed, 2 lanes in either direction. It would look very similar to some of the roadways that you see in Overland Park and Olathe with a grassy median. And it would have curb and gutter. We would be, with 199th Street improvements, we would be putting in a 10-foot trail on the north side of 199th Street, like along the school and Prairie Ridge and
When you
that
say
area.
we, that means
The city.
20% from the city and then the rest hopefully coming from these grants, or is the developer that has that property right there, would they be responsible for any of that?
We are currently working on the design through, the city has programmed money in the CIP for 199th Street. We also received CARS funding through Johnson County to help with that. I believe that's a 50-50 match through grants. And then we do have, I believe it was 2017 or 2019, the school district built the administration building. They were responsible for putting in sidewalk along their frontage. We're asking them, we had asked them at the time to wait and let us do 199th Street, and then they would reimburse us for the cost of that trail. So it's a partnership, but it would be between the city, the county, and then, like I said, with the school district through previous planning commission action.
Okay. Thank you.
And yes, I'm digging in all the couch cushions.
But the county owns the land on the northeast side of that intersection, right?
That is correct.
So would that become city?
No, not unless the property owner annexes in. Johnson County Public Works is working on, I believe it's going to be in 2029 or 2030. They're going to be making improvements to 199th Street from Renner to Lackman. So they're currently under design with that project, and we're working with the Public Works staff to marry the two projects together so that we have a better transition. So we're going to put in a little bit more asphalt with our project, and Johnson County is going to help reimburse us for that cost so that it works well with what their future roadway design will be. And their roadway is only going to have shoulders. It's going to be a shoulder improvement like you see on other county roadways.
So similar question to that, at the 207th and Ridgeview, where you said there's going to be a roundabout, right?
Hopefully.
So county has one side of Ridgeview and the city has the other side. So is that similar as far as the weight? Who's responsible for?
The city would be, if the city is the one doing the project, we would be responsible for it, but we would apply for CARS funding. And through CARS funding, typically it's a 50-50 match. The CARS funding, if approved, they would pay 50% of the construction costs. We also have developments that are going in down there. We've got some development agreements.
Does the county not participate at all with helping with that?
Sometimes they'll help out, well, besides the CARS funding, which helps out tremendously. They sometimes will help with acquisition and getting easements and right of way whenever it's their residence. But we also did receive grant funding through Mid-America Regional Council to improve 207th Street from Woodland to Ridgeview. And that project should be happening sometime in 2027, 2028.
What does that look like?
That's going to be a complete street with the curb, gutter, storm drains, trail, sidewalk, all the things that you're going to see on 199th Street.
Okay. Thank you.
Was there any discussion about either the county or working with the county extending and paving Lone Elm from 191 to 299? To 199?
We talked about that. We had some of the small group meetings, as Jay mentioned, and we had that with Johnson County Public Works. And that was one of the projects that we talked about because we've got the signal project that's going to be happening at 191st Street. And we assume that there's going to be some people that are going to be using that roadway as their detour while that construction's underway. So we kind of gave them a heads up that if nothing else, let's maybe try to chip seal or do some sort of surface treatment to make that roadway a little bit better.
Well, and the long run would be that it gives you more access, especially since you know that Dayton Creek's continuing to grow.
Yeah, no, we brought it up, and with anything, it takes time to plan, design, and to construct some of this stuff. So I'm not sure that anything's going to happen, but I think I nagged them enough that they got the idea that we
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
I had another question going back to trails around from 223rd and to Webster to Victory. Is that going to be sidewalks or is that like a walking trail?
So that's going to be a 10-foot trail, asphalt or concrete? So yeah, a 10-foot concrete trail.
Okay. Is there any plans to add on maintenance of existing walking trails? Because I live in Blackhawk and the walking trail in Blackhawk is not ADA accessible. It is tree roots all through it. It's not safe to jog down. And so I know for me, I have a hard time accepting new trails, the idea of new trails in town when the current ones aren't maintained. So I didn't know if that's a part of it, like maintaining or rehabilitating current trails in addition to new ones.
So I'm not sure if those are public or private trails. I'd have to.
It's city.
They're
city trails. Yeah.
Okay. So that is a different budget. So a lot of the projects that we're talking about tonight are going to come from the capital improvements program. We have a separate pot of money through our city budget that takes care of maintenance of our existing infrastructure. If you've got concerns, feel free to email. You can email me. If you don't have my email address, send it to Amy, and she can get you that information. She can forward your email on to me. We can get that information over to our Public Works Department through. Hopefully, we'll have a better system to get those complaints. But that's what I would recommend. Anytime that you see any issues out on the trails, out on the sidewalks, out on the streets, let us know so that we can get that programmed in. We don't have eyes everywhere in the city. We like to think that we do, but we don't.
And that was going to be my follow-up question is, will these, I know we're going to have, you said potentially a task force or a committee of people to make sure that these things are being taken care of properly. That was going to be my follow-up question was how do we ensure that the new things going in will be maintained as well? So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully in the future we'll have a better C-click fix or some sort of citizen response system so that people can lodge their complaints. They can pin a spot on the map and tell us exactly where there's an issue. If there's a pothole somewhere or if there's a grade separation in the sidewalk, let us know so that we can start programming that into our maintenance program, whatever that looks like. If that's, having our public works crew go out and patch a pothole, that's something easy for us to do. Or if we need to program it into our annual sidewalk maintenance program.
Awesome.
Did you say you guys had 130 residents that completed the online survey for this? That's how many
Yeah, that's
participated?
correct. Yeah.
Do you know how many people engaged at your guys' open houses and at Daffodil Days and the other?
We don't have a specific number. We do have a number of people that signed up for information. And I want to say it was about 40 or 50 people signed up to receive information. It might have been 60. We have that in our public engagement appendix, some of those details. We had a lot of good engagement, but doing something like Daffodil Days or Hometown Holidays is a little hard to note everyone you captured and just walked by and saw the plan and saw a little bit about it. We talked to, I would say, at any of those pop-up events, probably 20 to 30 people per event that we got to chat with for a minute or two. And give out. We had some different activities and prizes, and giving some things out to the kids, some Hot Wheels, and Ms. Abel had the great idea to give out Hot Wheels in a bag, and in the bag had a card for the adults to go to the website to engage with the plan. So maybe we capture a little bit of the adults' attention out of the kids' attention. So.
Pop-up events, what do you think was the most standout thing that you guys heard? I mean, I get if you only had 30 people, that it might be 4 people said the same thing. What was the most standout thing that you guys had across the board?
Sidewalks.
And right now, you guys have one sidewalk plan
So
on South Street on the north side?
As part of that grant application, and the grant application for safety is a little bit tricky because we have to, in order to be eligible for the grant, you have to identify places that have a history of crashes. Because they look at the number of crashes that have happened at a location and compare it to the cost, they can get a benefit cost because they want to fund things that have a positive benefit cost or that and bring more benefit back than the cost. So with the sidewalks, again, it's a little challenging because we don't have as many pedestrian and bicycle crashes today. So for a funding program like Safe Streets for All, it's difficult to put together an application that would be eligible for funding if we haven't had pedestrians or cyclists killed. And it's a really unfortunate reality of how these grant programs work, in that we have to kind of almost wait for someone to die to do something. But again, that's why we wanted to be more proactive in this plan, do some of the risk assessment, and of course, listen to the public and what they're interested in. And that's really why one of those top short-term action items was to prioritize sidewalk and crosswalk construction in accordance with the sidewalk strategy plan.
Yeah, I think South Street definitely needs it. I would ask, what other areas were identified when you guys were doing your research that seemed like they were on the border or that were highlighted or elevated that be next in line at South Street?
In terms of sidewalks? So Woodland, east of downtown, just east of the tracks between, I guess it'd be 207th and 215th. That's one location we had pedestrian fatality, a child crossing the road to get mail.
Just what I was looking at.
Yeah, so that was just east there. That's a road where you do have pedestrian activity. You've got some businesses over there that people would want to go to. You've got residences, and it's near downtown. It's the access to downtown from the east side, and it's 2 lanes now with a ditch. There's really nowhere to walk safely on there. So that's a location that I think would be important to prioritize for safety. That is also a previously programmed project. I believe that's with CARS funding in that location. So I'm not sure that if the details of that project have been worked out or not, or if it's just funded. So it sounds like it's funded. So I think adding.
It is funded?
It's funded on the Johnson County CARS program. I think it's for 2027 or 2028.
Yeah, it's in the long range, the 5-year CIP for our CARS funding.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's something that we'll eventually get to. One thing I wanted to mention, whenever we were doing the open house, we did have a lot of comments regarding the intersections at 207th and 215th along K7, or along 169. So we did have a lot of people that were interested. You gave them 5 or 6 dots, and they used all of their dots on that area. So I thought that was kind of telling that, they lived around that area or interacted in that area, and they saw, so this is the dot map from the open house, where everybody put the majority of their dots.
They're bad.
So, forgive me if this has been covered previously. What are the chances of just closing off the entrances to the highway there? Is that a possibility, and just having exit-only lanes potentially, and having to go to 223rd, 199th? Since, or even now, I was thinking even 191st, you don't need to get on the highway there. We have a byway. So, like, is it an option to, instead of adding stoplights and making it take potentially 30 minutes to get to Olathe from Spring Hill, could we just close that highway entrances?
They won't add stoplights at 215. There's not enough traffic.
Well, I'm saying,
But they
sorry.
could shut it down.
That's what she's saying.
That's what I'm saying.
You have to go to.
Yeah, close it down, even at 191st, close it down.
Talking about just doing like a right in, right
And
out.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're bringing that up, because my stepson had a serious accident at 215 and 169, totaled the car. A water bottle was stuck in the dash. So the reason is you can't see
Yeah.
because of the curve.
Yeah.
The way the terrain is. And so, yeah, I agree with what she's saying. They should probably shut that down. I know it won't justify a stoplight, but they should do something there.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, we have approved a ton of housing right there at 215th, and the only accessibility is to get onto the highway right there unless they're going all through
Right,
town
so
during
it'll
the school
put them at-
traffic.
Which one of my, not my biggest fear, but one of the things that I've always been afraid of, I grew up in Spring Hill, lived here my whole life, I've seen the progression. I'm afraid that 169 highway is gonna become K7, where you have a stoplight every mile, and it's just a nightmare to get through. Like if you're going up to Leavenworth, it's a nightmare to get up K7, and I don't want that to be the case on 169. I would like it to be a highway still, and make it quick to get to Olathe, because we are far enough out that it's inconvenient. And so I would like to see no more stoplights on 169. Close it all off, go to 175th, 199th, 223rd.
Have the frontage roads.
Yes, frontage roads.
Well, you also had mentioned being able to churn, if you're just doing a right-hand
Yeah.
turn, but maybe having a larger merge lane, that way they can get up to speed, so they're not coming over, because that's a huge issue, obviously, during traffic, is they're all coming over into the right lane, and then everyone gets over into the fast lane, and then it just stops everybody on both sides,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Something I will mention too is that I think all the things you're talking about definitely make sense, and things that are being considered as part of this grant application. Especially considering the grant application is not an enormous amount of money. It's not enough money to build an interchange or an overpass or something like that. So we're looking at some of those lower cost countermeasures, like the access management, like maybe looking at some of the highest risk movements, which are really turning left onto the highway or going across the highway, or when a lot of those crashes are happening. So thinking about those kinds of improvements at those specific locations. But also, KDOT is moving forward with a planning study for all of K7 from 215th Street to I-35. And so exactly your question about the future of it and what it looks like, that's going to be starting here in just another month or two, to look at, are there improvement options in the near term that would be beneficial, whether it's signalization or closing access or building some of these frontage roads, backage roads, and also what's the long-term vision? Is this going to turn into a freeway with interchanges? Is it going to look more like Metcalf at some point with development along it? So that is something that KDOT's moving forward with as well. So something we noted in this plan, and we identified 169 as one of those priority corridors, but really just to say the city's role in that really is to advocate for the improvements that the city wants. KDOT is going to move forward with all the different stakeholders, the county, with Olathe, and with others in the public. But it's also always important, to KDOT to hear from the locals what the community is interested in, what the commissions and boards and council members are interested in. So that's in the plan as well, is to really advocate for safety, livability, growth, economic development on 169.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys did, or if Pat and Amy or anyone has paid attention, how much traffic has increased through Wiswells is that Webster?
It's really nice. It's
it's
safe to take, and.
we
I
use it a lot.
I use it, yeah.
We use it a lot.
Yeah, it's increased, and it was designed for that.
Yeah, so if we would continue to progress down that type of scenario,
Right, and
Like
that's what
having
we
team
continue-
drivers, I
continue
love
to look
the
at that.
byway. I love it. So
Yeah, we continue to look at that with each development that comes in, and we actually have a small plan designed to cross the creek there to extend Webster from 191st to 183rd.
That'd be awesome.
And,
Yeah.
it just, guys, it's so much money, so get the plan ready and see what we can do from there.
Well, but if we planned for it, that's better than what we've,
Yeah, so I said, get the plan.
that's what I mean, that's what I said. But if we'd continue to do that planning process instead of being reactive,
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, did you get any, back to sidewalk, did you get any feedback from the public about the Victory Woods that leads over to the aquatic, coming out of that area?
That intersection.
It's kind of dangerous, and we've talked about this a lot, Pat, because
Right.
it's so.
Right, so they didn't get, remember guys, this is the most dangerous areas, and like he said, that
roads.
it wasn't a complete study of a pathway or an alternative transportation type study for the entire community. They had to focus on, and then in focusing on that, they're able to utilize that information through a specific grants along the way. And they're really designed for, unfortunately, like he said, areas that people are getting killed. And so the rest of it is really up to the city on getting those areas taken care of or prioritized or whatever we want to say under their program. So,
On that point, I want to say it's really well done. I mean, the map on 61 and 17 is extremely useful, especially on 61 where you have the city, county and state prioritized, how you labeled it, CS11 or 1-1, CS1-2. I mean, it's very easy to follow, the priority one, first project, priority one, second project, and so on. And I mean, to me, this is one of the better things I've ever seen that's come in front of our board for the safety by far. Cindy, wouldn't you agree?
yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about another plan and thinking this is so well put together.
So, I just want to compliment them because it's so well put together that
Yeah,
I haven't
it's
seen it
yeah,
before. And so it highlights every critical, like Pat said, every critical major severe or death area that we would expect, 223rd, up to 169, Ridgeview, up, between 207th and 191st Street, all those. And then you look at the previously programmed city projects, way out here, it kind of shows how much the city's changed and how good this study is to help safety. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
Just a
Good job,
comment.
guys.
Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah,
We appreciate that. I will relay that to the rest of the team because obviously there's a whole lot of people at HDR. And also, of course, the advisory committee and city staff that worked very hard on this. So I appreciate it. I will take all the credit though.
Anything else? If not, thank you. That was a very enlightening report.
Thank you all.
Great job, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to our next item.
We entertain a motion?
Oh,
So I'll need a
go with
motion
the
from you
action.
tonight to recommend approval
Okay.
or adoption of the plan. And then we will take this to city council next week for formal adoption. And our plan is to submit this. We have a deadline later this month to submit it. And with that, we will be submitting our implementation grant application for those 7 project areas that you saw up on the screen. So it starts here with you guys recommending the adoption of this plan.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the adoption of SS4A Comprehensive Safety Action Plan as presented.
do
I
we
second
need
it.
to add that? Do we need to add the alignment of Webster Street, or you guys will just naturally put that in there?
We can update the plan to include that as an additional study area.
Thank you.
Good point.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor, start on the left.
Aye.
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 700. Thank you. Next item. Item 3. preliminary plat application, Allendale Meadows.
Good evening. This is a replat of Avondale Meadows and preliminary plat. When they go in and, we've talked about it before on the detention areas and things like that, and plat out in areas that they think will accommodate it. And in this case, the areas were a lot larger, and with the changes in some of the infrastructure, they were able to gain 4 lots out of this. So one of the reasons that we brought it back, usually, if there's 4 lots and it just continues out, they actually did make a couple of small changes in the layout of the streets to make it flow a little better and all, and not as originally they had a cul-de-sac that came right off of the beginning and things like that. So it just, by readjusting and all, they were able to gain 4 lots.
Question? I really didn't see any significant difference. It seems to make the layout a little more simpler.
Yes, thank you. And like I said, the one is the 2 entrances now connect, and that was a cul-de-sac. So some of the flow patterns did get a little better. It's amazing, you can move a detention basin 10 foot and it makes all the difference in the world for the entire area. And like I said, it was only a gain of 4, but it still seems to make everything flow better through there.
Any questions? Concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you.
Move that we recommend PP-25-3 as presented by staff.
Second.
First and seconded, all those in favor, on the right?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
7-0-0. Preliminary plat application, Garrett Ranch.
Okay, so this is a proposed replat of Garrett Ranch, which is just west of the high school. So in the platting process of this, a little background is that it was asked to meet the design and the standards and all of Estates of Wolf Creek, because it does flow into Estates of Wolf Creek. And when the Olson Group, when they submitted the first preliminary plat in, the setbacks did not match Estates of Wolf Creek. Sometimes it's changes that they do make. And so anyway, when then they did the first plat, and then they came in the second plat and said, wait a minute, and some of the builders were starting to say, wait, these setbacks are huge and it makes it look out of place, and we were supposed to match Estates of Wolf Creek. So that's what it is. They've come in, they've replatted. It's the same plat. There was a little bit of an addition of a couple of lots there, same type of story, detention areas, but it just changes the setbacks. The layout's the same. And you can see from what was there, the proposed and the current, you can see that there's not any changes per se on it. Setbacks are the main important portion of this.
Is the L100, the overall landscape plan, is that the updated version? Because it's still showing a 35-foot building setback.
No, we haven't gotten to that point.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll change that in. We rush this on
Sure.
because, you know, they do have some builders that are sitting there waiting to build.
Oh, yeah, it's been up.
So,
They've got equipment sitting there.
Yeah, it's been.
yeah,
sitting
so I just want to, you know, we tried to accommodate them and, you know, it was really an engineering mistake on that, so.
Okay. Any other questions? I think it's fairly,
Yeah, and I should have been a little more proactive on it. You know, I saw it and thought, well, they changed. But then when you start looking at it and you start putting the size of houses that they are on there, it really did look crazy. It, you know, I mean, the houses are very nice. It's going to be built there, don't get me wrong, but it did make it so that it wasn't in continuity with the next subdivision.
okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the preliminary plan application PP-25-4 as presented by staff.
Second.
First.
And second it? All those in favor, starting at the left?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
That's fine.
Other left.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, if not, it's 7-0-0 for approval. Final, that's
Yes, that's it, final plat.
final plat.
Yes. So in this, you know, I don't know if you remember, but they had phase one and then phase two. And we looked at it and said, let's combine, let's get this all cleaned up in one swipe. So these are the two combined with the setbacks changed, is what it is. And we checked that the numbering's all the same, addressing, all that, everything's the same. So,
I move the recommended approval of FP-25-5 as presented.
second.
Okay. We'll start on the left.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Approved. 7-0-0. Final plat, Cummins property.
Yes, thank you. This is the final plat, you know, as you that have been on the planning commission for a while, the Cummins, they go in and preliminary plat, and then as they go and develop each lot, they final plat it due to the type of structure that might be put on there or some drainage or things of that nature. So this is just another lot that is being platted off. Actually, two lots in this case, 8 acres. So they'll have 2 additional lots that they will start constructing on when site plan, which is up next, is approved. Continuation of what they're doing there.
And one is that, one of them is the building and the other one is pretty much a parking lot.
That's correct. That's on the site plan, though, for the next step.
Any comment? Hearing no comments. Stand for a motion.
I move to recommend approval application FP 25-4, final plat of Cummins property, 8th plat to the Spring Hill governing body, including any conditions as presented in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, first and second it. All those in favor, let's start at the left.
Aye.
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 All those opposed? None. 7-0-0. And site plan application. SP 25-5.
Thank you again. This is an application store what, and it's the Cummins property, and it's continuation of what they are constructing out there. This is a 24,000 square foot building that they're going to construct with, it's a flex type use, office warehouse type, or just straight warehouse. It's build it and then rent it out or lease it. So they have several of these buildings just about the same everywhere. They did have to add some detention on this. If you remember, that area has area detention, but it's getting to a point where some of these will have to, they don't flow to it, basically. So I don't really care for these little mosquito basins, but you have to do it, on some of this. So it's all the same type of structure they've been doing, plans. They just keep finding that they're having great success on leasing these, what nowadays is considered a smaller structure. It's still 25,000 square or 24,000 square foot. So.
Anything? Any questions? Motion?
There's no elevations in here.
No, it's the same. What they were trying to do is, they had a few problems with the way I understand it, with steel going up and things like that, and they were doing some alternative. It'll be the same type of structures that they're building out there right now. So.
Have you already approved, like, the exterior finishing of the building, just?
No, that's what I was saying. We didn't receive it yet.
Okay.
Due to their redesign on the steel or something of that nature. So as soon as we get it, if it's okay with you guys, and I don't foresee anything changing, and because they're having good success with the type of buildings that they're doing. We can bring it to you though, as an after the site plan. Be more than happy to.
Well, my assumption is that they'll carry the same
They are.
sort of
Yes.
look that they have right now.
Right, but when we do receive them, I will go ahead and just bring them in on you, because I've not received any building plans yet.
Right.
So.
Any motion?
I move to recommend approval of application SP-25-5, site plan 24K building to Spring Hill governing body, including any conditions presented in the staff report.
I second it.
Go ahead.
First and second, let's start on the right.
Oh. Aye.
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 All those opposed, nay? Okay, 700 approved. Now we move on to number 8, preliminary plat application, Bonita 175.
Okay, I still say it's the Carvana site,
Okay.
but, so it's 125 acres. Some of us have been through it several times with different site plans and, going through it, with Carvana. So, and it is part of the new sewer district that is happening, on the, east side of the railroad tracks, and come up to serve all these properties through here. So it's pretty easy. It's just 2 lots that it'll be divided in. One of them 60 and one of them 60.48, if I remember exactly. Just a north and a south lot at this point. As you can see, preliminarily platted.
Any questions?
Got one, which is, it looks like they're going to maintain the existing pond that's on the property. Is that correct? On the east side, towards the tracks?
Do they use that for the site? We can review that in the site plan.
Okay.
But let me check real quick. It looks like Yeah, it looks like they are utilizing some of that for the detention basin, yes, on the site plan, as adding to it as we'll discuss in the site plan.
Move recommendation of PP-25-2 as presented.
Second.
If so, we'll go ahead and vote. We'll start on the right. Man?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Final plat, application.
Okay. This is the final plat of the preliminary that you just reviewed. This will be lot 1, and 2. So there's one lot that they're final platting at this time, a 60-acre tract or 60.48 acre tract, plus or minus a little bit. And it will be for the accommodation of the site plan that we'll review if you choose to review it next.
Is that lot 2?
I believe it's lot 1.
Oh, okay.
South to north. I had to take a picture of it with my phone and blow it up.
Says lot 1 on here.
Any questions? No. There are no questions. I entertain a motion.
I move to recommend approval of application FP-25-3 final plat with the window of 175 to the Spring Hill governing body, including any conditions as presented in the staff report.
Second.
We'll start on the left.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Approved, 7-0. Item 10. Site plan application, project Beckett.
Yeah, it is called Project Beckett. It's for Lindage Logistics, and Phelps is the engineering. It's a site plan for the lots that we just preliminary and final platted. Before we go any farther, I don't want to confuse anybody on what I'm asking here. I don't know if you read your packet or not, but when we review this site plan clear through, then I would like to have a small discussion on this site being able to be moved to the north. It is not being asked by the company, it's only being asked by staff that if something comes along where they could move this one lot to the north and free up additional ground to the south, then obviously the site plan will be brought back for the north part. No major changes. You can see a proposal that we did include, but it's just for staff. And then we know how to guide them if there's another project that happens to come along. That what it would leave, it'd leave about 210 acres south if they went to the north. So we kind of want to look at that and
The
talk
north
with the
lot, meaning the
companies.
one that's on 175th Street, basically?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not-
It's
Yeah.
the last page of your packet. But right now, all the questions and everything, we need to address the site plan as it is now. But it's something that, if you guys say, well, yeah, we wouldn't have any trouble with the same type of design, layout and all moving to the north. And it saves a lot of logistic time for the staff. And it gives more reassurance. That's what we're basically concerned about if it happens. So, all right, so we have a site plan on the south lot or lot 1. It's a approximately 100, or it's 60.28 acres, or 6.48 acres. There is going to be a construction of a new 433,000 round figures building there. Traffic loads have all been identified. The one item on this that staff is pretty stern on is that the road on the east side of this project needs to be public road. They're calling it out as private, but it needs to be a public road to continue on down in the future at some time when the others develop south of this. It would continue down to 183rd. And then through all these studies and all this, we'll see how that affects where maybe it would then continue on down Webster clear to 191st and 199th, meaning that we would try and have a full road down through there, like what we did with Webster. There'll be some jog in it and things like that as it goes on south, but that's one item that staff would really like to see that agreed upon. The parking, as you can see, it's 1 per 500. Everything meets the standards of accessibility and all. This is a freezer type structure, and I'll go through a little more of that when I get to the elevations, okay? It's already zoned for that. The proposed height on it is 145 foot. The code allows up to a 75, 80 foot in the code, but the planning commission has the right to go ahead and have that to 145 foot. We've done it several times, and this structure would be incomparable to everything that's being built on the north side of 175th, not in our jurisdiction, as well as the buildings that you see off of I-35. So
It would be fairly comparable to the Walmart.
Yes, it's a little taller than Walmart's, but it's
The Walmart is less, it's under 55 feet, and this is 145,
145.
The height of the wall.
so triple the Walmart.
What the structure is very similar to the structure that you see off of I-35 that has the different colored panels in it.
Yeah.
And that's what this would look like. So
Where is that one?
it's a weight station, I-35 and the weight station.
Okay.
Hey, Pat, where are you referencing that the zoning can go up to 70 to 80 feet? I know I did see it.
70 foot
They can go to
height.
70 feet,
Yeah,
right?
it's in the height regulations.
Deviation.
Yeah, yes. And that's why I wrote in this is a deviation from that, and the planning commission will have to make that
But the
decision.
standard M1 is a 55 foot height limitation.
70.
Under your M1, if you go to height restrictions and regulations, then we can go to 70, but then the planning commission has to make that determination on anything past that. And really the 70 foot as well. Height, it's in height and area, if I remember correctly, in your code.
Yeah, so in the code, it has the maximum height, it's 55 for an M1. And then under section 17.348, height, area, and yard exceptions. Under A, there's height exceptions, and it does say that public or semi-public buildings such as churches, schools, or hospitals may be erected to a height not exceeding 70 feet, provided that such buildings shall have yards which shall be increased 1 foot on all sides for each additional foot that such buildings exceed specified height limit as established by the regulations of the district in which such buildings are situated. So this was in our,
So
It's in height and, Yeah, it's in the height regulations on it. So then the
But
planning,
like that exceptions for, would you say public schools?
It says for
it's all built.
public,
all
or
buildings.
semi-public buildings such as churches, schools,
Okay.
or hospitals.
It's for all buildings.
Got it.
It's not limited to that, but the planning commission has the ability to allow these heights. It's a Monarch, it's 130, 127, something like that. But a lot of the buildings that are in the other jurisdiction, like I said, the one that is right by the weight station off I-35 and all, those buildings, this building would be comparable in height than a lot of those. So,
The way station in Gardner.
Yeah.
yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's Olathe
Is-
jurisdiction, yeah. It's compatible with the surrounding
How tall
area.
is that, do you know?
I'm not exactly sure. 100 even is what that one is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
It's compatible with the surrounding areas as well as the zoning. The proposal, the future land use calls all that out as being industrial type uses. And this property actually came into the city as an industrial zoned property when it annexed into the city. There's one thing that I want to talk about. We talked about the entrances and and all the stops and signalization and intersections of 169. So they are doing this rail study right now, and it could very well that in looking at preliminary stuff and what we'll show you some stuff on the next one. That road could be elevated way up to go over the tracks, meaning it could very well start just this side or east of Lone Elm and elevate up and go over to, it'd just be woodland area, just in that area. So in thinking about that, and we're looking at this, that the elevation of this would be, my preference would be not to look at the top of the building when you're going over it, over the pass, and you would still see a fascia of the building if and when they elevate that.
How tall are the railroad overpasses usually?
Take a look at
Like
this.
23rd, how tall is that?
Yeah, and I think that's about 25 foot,
Okay.
but you have a lot more to face here as far as getting height and all over the highway and distance. Well, to give you an idea, they're saying that the entrance for the one that we will talk about next needs to be 1,000 foot from the railroad. So all that is going to be really elevated a lot, maybe like the 435 and 935 loop area that's elevated. We don't know yet until this study gets back. So that was one of the reasons that staff feels that this structure being that, and it is an industrial area, it's right next to the tracks, and it's pretty well boxed in where it would not affect any residential areas. So the easements are there. There are a couple of utility easements that may have to be adjusted due to the sewer that's coming into this project. Can we go to elevations, Amy? There we go. So this is what the structure looks like, or is proposed to look like. You have office, you have mechanical, and then you also have the freezer and shipping areas, as you can see. This is a rendering of what they're proposing for this. At this time, though, they are not proposing that railroad leg to be put in there, or spur, if you will. So at this time, they're not proposing it. If they do in the future need it, then they would obviously work with the railroad and come back to us with a some sort of side drawing on this. Go ahead. This is the office area that you can see what it would look like there.
And this is the side that would be closest to 169.
That is correct. Here are some elevational heights on it. No, I do not want to steer you wrong on this. If you go back one, that elevation is actually, if you look, it is facing the railroad area. And then if you go back one more, then that is the area similar to what would be facing 169. Very similar to that, except you can see the loading docks are actually over on the other side there. These are just a few loading docks there. So if you go to the site plan, there we go. As you can see, the railroad tracks on your right-hand side anyway, and then you can see the building and it spells out what that is. As you can see, the office area is on the east there.
Pat, do you mind if we ask questions during?
No, that's what, yeah, no, we need to.
What is the total number of tractor trailer spaces? Like,
Yeah, I knew you were gonna ask me that. Now, can you blow that up right there, Amy? Oh, you can't. Just a second. I'll blow it up.
I tried to add it up and I think I came up with 500.
You don't have to add it up. It's right.
Oh, it
here.
is in the text?
It's in your, well, I can't read
Yeah,
it.
it's not legible.
500.
You're pretty close. Plus the 30 that include the tractor.
Yes, no, I think that's everything. What they're calling, oh, I've got it right here. Never mind. Gee, many. Yeah, finally found it. I blew it up on that. Tractor stalls are,
66.
yeah, so, and then standard spaces is 205. You have a total of 866. It's in your report on page 2. It's, don't get me wrong, it's a big project and, it's hard to imagine that we're going to continue to get larger and larger projects. I'm looking at the state bids and everything that come out for projects. There's all kinds of them out there, Lightyear and Delaney and all kinds of them. And really, most of these are 300 to 500 acre projects. There are no real small projects anymore. And I think the proof is right here in our own community that how well the Cummins is doing up there. 183rd and Webster.
How many square footage is Cummins?
The one that we just approved is 24,000.
20, yeah.
4,000?
Yeah,
How many
so
square foot is this? Is it
463 or
433.
433.
352 on the main floor and
430.
71 on the mezzanine.
Okay.
Yeah, 433 total. So,
It's a big bill.
yeah, it's big.
How tall is Cummins?
Oh, they're 30 foot eaves, because that's what a lot of them, they used to build them at 22 and 25. Like one of the buildings you're probably familiar with, I think that's a 25. But now a lot of people want cranes for these.
If you had to
Flex
guess,
building.
what is the tallest building in our area?
I have no, in our area?
Yeah,
Oh,
compare it to. This is about 13 stories tall,
I would-
14.
That's more of a structure.
What, the cement?
Well, cement plant.
Yeah, it's just a structure.
But,
How tall
I
is
mean,
that?
any of the hotels and all, I mean, you're talking
He
13
said 120.
stories.
About 13
I mean,
stories?
how many Yeah, you go into.
Four silos.
Where's the closest 13-story hotel you've
I
seen,
don't know, to
Pat?
be honest with you. That's, I just try and look at these and see if it'll fit.
So
good
the
for our
cement's
area.
127, this would be.
Right there,
A little bit.
127.
13 feet, or what,
Yeah.
is that right?
Now, I know, and, well, there is a project also that working on, similar to what you said, and it's 22 floors.
Okay. What is that?
I can't tell you, but it's similar to what you were talking about. And it's 22
What
floors.
is that?
I can't tell you.
Tell you that either.
I'm just trying to tell you that we are, here's my
There's a
point.
building out
There's
there
a-
that
No, my point is,
Building somewhere.
here's my point. Here's my point, is we are working on other projects that are maybe not the square footage of this, but they'll be half and taller.
Yeah.
The 22 floors is, and this one happens to be about 230 something foot, I don't remember. And, I'm working hard to try and get it because it's something the community needs.
I know there's so many things to consider with things like this,
Yeah.
but the first thing I think of when I see this is, oh my gosh, more structures like this will like relieve the tax burden off of citizens.
It does help, yes.
And so that's the first thought I have when I think of something like this. And then obviously there's so many other things to consider on top of that. But I know from a fairly new perspective here, I'm like, ooh.
Well, let me give you an idea, and you can look this up. It's public record. You go down 175th, and the structure that they built right there, just the warehouse, and then Coca-Cola is being built behind it. If you look that up, their tax bill is $900 and something thousand a year. Open shell. Now, you can look it up on Ames.
Are there any abatements or revenue bonds being requested for this site?
There will be some. Most of it will be IRBs that will relieve the tax burden on materials. They have already filed some abatements with the state for employees. I mean, they're employing a lot of people, employing a lot of people for our community as well.
Yeah.
What's
So
that range? It'd be like a 200, 300?
200,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
do any of those delay the revenue to the city following the completion of construction?
That's not,
Well, we have,
hang on,
yeah.
that's not really part of the site plan
Okay.
process.
yeah, and what I can tell you is that there's a lot of fees also up front for building permit fees and all. I wish I would have looked up how much Cardinals paid, but it's a bunch. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of fees, that the city receives on these. And, there was another piece of property north of 175th that was just annexed by Olathe not very long ago. And this whole area is going to be structures like this, whether it's in our community or it's in another community. It's already started. It's very well established. Everybody knows it. And everyone really needs these structures for future. Let's say there's some 10-year tax abatement. 10 years goes by in a flash. Ask Edgerton. They're starting to really, really collect. Well, they have been for a few years now. So, but there's also taxes, even abatement wise. I'm just going to go through this real quick. Abatement wise, there will still be some revenue. Okay. So, but part of the site plan is what we're trying to take a look at on this. Any questions? I know it's a big project. Yeah.
When you were talking about,
Well, you have to ask Chair. I'm sorry, but that's okay.
you were talking about doing the overpass possibly around the railroad. What kind of impact would that have if you were to put this on the north lot versus the lot to the south of it?
It looks like it's going to be an elevated structure. So, what is that, 87th Street, where there's like the lumber yard underneath there and all that. And, it would be similar to those types of things. There'll still be little access roads that go around and get them to a road that goes out.
Okay.
So, And that's all the design process of the overpass, or so we call it. This could be 10 years. I doubt I'll see it.
Would they have any responsibility with helping with that, or would that just be on the city of Spring Hill or the county or?
Okay, so right now it's a big conglomerate, and really the people with the most power is called the railroad. So they would have to look at all that, and that's what the study is right
Study,
now.
right?
Yes. So funding, I don't know. I would imagine that usually when we see those, that's a lot of state and railroad and federal money.
When will the study be done?
It actually, what they didn't say is it starts clear up here, but it goes clear down through Pittsburgh, or Fort Scott and
Okay.
all. So it's a huge study area.
We
And,
won't have that information before we need to make a decision.
oh, no.
Oh, heck no.
We won't have that information on the next
I think the main,
50.
to me, the main issue, let me just speak out loud. The main issue here is that we want to look at something a little beyond the code from 70 to 140, is that right? 145. Is,
Yes. And it might be
Zoning.
123, okay?
does the zoning fit the area that, yeah, it's zoned for that? Does it fit the surrounding buildings that are going to be in place? I think it does. And the railroad's right there too. The only question is, does the added feet, is that going to really be a problem for anybody? I don't think
I mean,
it's a site issue.
it's huge in terms of
Huge.
the sight lines.
Is it going to be a problem for anybody?
I mean, think about, right,
What did you say, Josh?
Can we put
welcome to Spring Hill. But, think about the impact that the Monarch silos had on the horizon
Yeah.
and the light pollution at night.
Right.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. What about the
And that's
light?
127 feet.
But I think that's different.
It is different because it's a much smaller footprint.
Well, but this is also in a different area.
I would say there's not any.
It's
Right,
within
it's not
sight.
close to.
It's within sight of Monarch. I mean, it's just 100 acres north. It's right there. Because, and the reason staff wants it to be moved to the north is so that you have contiguous development down
You think it
to
could
Monarch.
be an eyesore?
It-
Same as
it-
Monarch?
It'll be more than an eyesore. It will block sunlight to the homes on the southwest across 169. I mean, 145 feet high. When our M1 zoning standard is 55 feet, exception is 70 feet, Walmart building is 55 feet.
Yeah, it's big.
We're talking
Tall it would be,
triple.
but times 432,000 square foot.
Right, so not only is it tall, I mean, the towers are an eyesore, but they're small, right? They just go straight up. This is a monolith. It'll look like Ayers Rock on the horizon of our community, and it'll be, I think it's funny that it could be the billboard, the welcome,
Yeah, I mean, it's like.
but it really would be.
Does it have to be white?
And that's why I'm bringing this up, because that's the real issue we're trying to talk about here.
Well,
is the
but
height.
nobody's mentioned the lighting though. I mean, if you're gonna compare this with Monarch,
The light pollution.
Well, the Monarch towers comply with the city codes, right?
no, but I'm just saying, we've talked about the height, but when we're talking about Monarch, we all know that the lighting became a
Right.
problem. We've not heard anything about this in lighting.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lighting problem.
There's not gonna be any exterior lighting.
Bad.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say there
I know.
wouldn't be an issue. I mean, they're gonna have lights at the top of it and they're gonna be 140 feet in the air and that's gonna be the tallest light in that area.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you'll be able to see this, you can see the Garmin 8-story tower
Yeah.
How
for
many homes
7
are
or
on
8 miles.
the area though?
So I was looking on Ames, and you've got homes to the southwest that are a quarter of a mile away. There's not a lot of them. They're on the west side of 169. You've got development on the west side, or on 175th Street, which is about 3/4 of a mile away. 3/4 of a mile to Sycamore Springs. 3/4 of a mile to the Olathe neighborhood to the northeast, maybe 1 mile.
Right.
So all of those will be in line of sight. I mean, this will dominate their backyard view when they look out, day or night. It'll definitely dominate.
I will say, I think that
And
the area is zoned appropriately for what this is. I think industrial manufacturing is what this area is going to be. I just think this is a very large deviance from what our code is. It's not asking for a few feet or, 20 feet. It's asking for 3 times.
So my question then to that point would be,
what's the difference if we were to say no here and they just go opposite corner of the intersection and build
Right.
there? It's gonna be the same issue and now we're not gonna get any of the money.
In a
You know what I mean? Like any of the
jurisdiction.
tax
You're
dollars. or
exactly
anything.
right on that.
So, cause
Well,
what's
that-
to
you
say
know
they're not
that-
just gonna go to Olathe?
So one of the questions I have for Pat actually is, so when I was researching this, I saw that what appeared to be almost the same site plan was submitted,
Is that New Century?
out by New Century in 2017, and it triggered a lawsuit by Gardner City residents. It was on county land on that time. And then one of their biggest concern was the anhydrous ammonia, it's called, that's used in the refrigerant. So then I start Googling that, and that causes death if you're exposed to it. And there was an incident just a year and a half ago where 5 people died because one of the trailers carrying it turned over, killed 5 motorists, wiping out a father and 2 kids among them. But so that was one of the main arguments for the neighbors, because they're concerned, because this is a cold storage facility. The whole thing is refrigerated, and it uses this anhydrous ammonia as the refrigerant. So if that ever leaks, that's a big issue. And the incident in Illinois, they had to evacuate a 1 mile around. It was over 500 residents. They had to evacuate when there was this spill. And so again, that's a safety concern.
Yeah.
That the residents had. So I doubt it would be developed across the corner, because I think these concerns will come up later, just like they did in 2017.
Well, I know that the
The same
um,
type of system is in
See, I
like Coca-Cola.
I mean, quite
This is
frankly-
all contained.
Yeah, but it's larger. It's on a scale that's significantly larger for the amount of refrigeration.
I know that they, whenever
And
they
no
came
lights
back
on
from the
the
New
building.
Century project,
Okay.
it said
I
they-
I was talking to Spencer.
Oh, that's good.
I
they
can
said
hear you.
due to a change in customer needs is why they pulled out of New Century. But that was what they had said, and I guess I'm kind of curious as to what the customer needs are in our area that would be different than where it was before, if that was the reason that they pulled out.
Well, I can address a little bit of that, and then I'd
Okay.
be more than happy to have the applicants and I'll address it. But this whole area, the reason that we're receiving these type of structures in other jurisdiction is it's easy access to a lot of areas. I know that, you have to go several stoplights to get on I-35, but you're there. You can go the other direction and get on I-35. You can go south, 68. You can go over to 69, or go 68 to I-35 and then head south down to Texas, Oklahoma, whatever. That's the big, one of the number one factors that we hear in this entire area is what we hear. And we're working with other development in this area. The applicant did say that it would probably only get maximum 140 foot. But there's going to be a lot of these in these areas. I'm not going to say this, but a lot of different structures in these areas.
I agree with you that, and there's that, I think, is it called Park 169 on the east side of 69 that Olathe is doing, which is industrial plus residential as part of a mixed use, kind of approach. So there's no question that, for us, M1 will be all up and down there between the railroad track and the highway. The question is, M1's very broad, and the question is, how much of an exception do we want to make for a structure that is 3 times our zoning limitation for height? Where there's really, I would say that there's no precedent anywhere for a building that's 450,000 square feet, 145 or 140 feet in the air. Like, this is on a completely different scale. And if this one, so the company, I researched them, and they have over 450 sites around the world. They have one in Edwardsville. They have all different formats. And so, I would personally be comfortable with one that is within the exception limit for our M1, let's say 70 feet high. And I'm sure they have a lot of them that are that height. That's on them. But as far as the impact visually and aesthetically, it's apples and oranges. Like, 55 feet, 70 feet. This is another. It's 30% larger than the Walmart building and 3 times the height. So I think we'll get lots of Walmart type buildings, Cummins types buildings. Maybe even commercial, mixed commercial with industrial. I don't think we necessarily have to say yes to something that's 3 times our zoning
Yeah, you
height limit.
think of the cement plant, that's 127. This is another 13 feet higher than that. So it's higher than the cement plant. You can
I don't know.
See from
way-
everywhere.
Forever, but a giant building.
Yeah, we got a lot of pushback.
But at least there's no lights.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, and I would.
Do you want to address it?
I'd be curious if,
Believing there's.
Well, he just.
So the applicant would like to address a few things, Chairman.
We've got 3 or 4
Mr. Chairman.
conversations going. I can't follow them all.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Rob Sangdell, VP of Real Estate for Lineage. Thanks for hearing me. I heard a lot of concerns. We talk about ammonia. The size of the building does have a correlation to the amount of ammonia that's stored in it. The nice thing about tall buildings is they're much more efficient than low flat buildings. So if you think about our Edwardsville building, I think it's close to 700,000 square feet. It has a bigger ammonia charge than this building will. So
how tall is that one?
I'm going to say total's probably 50 feet.
Tall?
Yeah, but it's an old building.
Okay.
When I say old, it was built before automation technology was available. So automation allows you to go taller. And we could go to 200 feet if we wanted to, but there's a breakover point where automation costs too much money for the benefit it provides. So for us, 140 is the sweet spot, so to speak. Olathe does have ammonia charged buildings. We own one there. That's the building you referenced on 35.
What's the size of that one? Just for reference.
It's 100 feet tall. I'm not sure of how many square feet. You designed it.
400.
Is it 400? Yeah. So, and then as far as I know, it doesn't make a ton of difference. But if you look at the plan, the big rectangle in back of the loading dock and the small one next to it, that's what's 140. The rest of it's under 50. So not the whole thing. It's not all 400,000 square
Can
feet.
you point that out again? Sorry.
Where the writing.
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Back one. See it's where the writing is in the middle.
That's 140. And the
Yeah.
one next to it is, the one to the right is how much?
140.
Both of those,
So those are what we call a storage box. So that's where the racking is. That's where the product sits.
both of those are 140.
Yep.
And the one in front of,
This.
Yeah, the office is about 30 to 35. The loading dock, which is on the far left behind the office, that's 50. So not the whole thing is that tall. Someone mentioned New Century. Yeah, that was us. Jim Jensen was the neighbor behind the property that I guess raised an issue with Johnson County. I didn't know it got to a lawsuit, but I know that the county commissioners wanted us to step in and, hold him back. We did end up abandoning that project because the customer changed their, not their requirement, they changed ownership. That was a building owned by Unilever, and they sold that to Upfield. And now Upfield is partnering with, is it KJ Logistics? Do you know? I think it's KJ Logistics on building there. So they're doing what we were going to do. I don't know how tall they're going, but that building will be going up.
And it's a cold storage facility.
Yeah. And so again, when you have a customer that has a facility, it was a manufacturing facility. This would have been a plant attached storage facility. Avoids all the trucks on the road. You just use a conveyor belt to move product from production into storage. When they decided to sell that business, Unilever, they obviously had no more need to discuss the project with us, so it went away. And we actually did bid on the project with Upfield. We weren't successful.
And just think about the projects that are being constructed in Olathe area and all. Some of that goes on there is going to need these cold storage facilities. That's why, I mean, this will be built in the area somewhere because they need this cold storage
just read my mind.
type of facilities. So.
But so,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, Kat. Rob, I didn't catch your last name.
Sangdal.
Sangdal?
Sangdal.
Sangdal. Sangdal.
Like sang a song and then like a DOLL.
Sangdal.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Mr. Sengdahl, so of the 450 sites that are run by Lineage, how many do you imagine would be kind of in this size range?
A handful, 8 to 10. I'd say in the US, we're building one of these in Texas now. We just finished one in Pennsylvania. Lineage has grown through acquisition, so we've bought companies that have buildings of this size, so we didn't build them, they were already built. Predominantly, this technology first started in Europe because they have such land constraints, right? So they have to go up. And again, there's energy efficiencies here. You can have this double the cube of a low roof building, but you don't have double the electric bill, right? It's just a much more efficient way to cool a building by having it be taller than low and flat. So there's lots of advantages. We also keep our employees out of the -20 environment, so they're working on the loading dock, which is only 40 degrees. So
-20 Fahrenheit?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And again, that's why you see the color you see, because it has to reflect the sunlight. So if it's 100 outside and -20 inside, think about that differential and how much energy it takes to overcome that. So
Closed cell foam to insulate it, or what do you do?
yeah, it's a sandwich panel. So that the storage box it's called an IMP, insulated metal panel. It's about 6 inches thick. It's got about an R50 value. And they're very lightweight and very efficient. And they attach to the racking itself. So this building is a rack supported structure. There's no conventional steel inside these high storage boxes. So it's very unique, very specialized construction. And then one more thing you'll notice on these elevations, there's no external piping. So all the ammonia is 100% contained inside the building. And ammonia is lighter than air, and it's stored in the mechanical room. And if there is a leak, there's sensors, and there's upblast fans that shoot it up into the air where it dissipates and becomes harmless. And the best way to abate it, if there's a spill, spray it with water. It neutralizes it immediately. So the accident you referenced was an agricultural accident. We don't deal with ammonia like that. They use it as a fertilizer and tow it around behind tractors.
Right.
We don't do that.
Well, this was a tractor trailer with a tank full
Okay.
of it, like 7,500 gallons.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we don't consume ammonia.
Right.
The same amount that we charge it with theoretically stays there for the life of the building. It just gets recycled. It gets squeezed, it evaporates, makes cold air, gets squeezed again.
Have you ever had any accidents related to ammonia?
We've had releases, absolutely. They're all reportable. We follow OSHA and EPA standards to maintain the systems. As far as I know, we've only had one death, and that wasn't during the operation of the facility, it was during construction. Somebody made a mistake and it cost them their lives.
Was that ammonia related or?
Yeah. But it wasn't during an operation. It wasn't during the normal course of operations. It was, again, during construction. And again, it was contained within the building. Somebody took a face full of it, so.
Can you describe the lighting that would be on?
So we would be totally compliant with any kind of light trespass laws. There are no lights on the building unless the FAA wants us to, which will be red markers.
We checked that.
It's usually 200 feet.
Yeah. So no, we won't have big spotlights shining down. So we'll have, 40-foot tall cutoffs, whatever local code is.
Okay.
To follow through with what Kendra was alluding to with, and then what you had just mentioned, that there's other businesses in the area, would this by any, I mean, I know this is not site plan related or whatever, but would this by any chance bring other businesses to the area? Would it, I mean, like when the glass plant came, it brought other area businesses. Would this by any chance bring anything else with it?
We are working with 2 other facilities, and then also it has reignited and spurred interest to complete the truck plaza.
Oh,
Because of the cold storage, you mean?
All the,
Cold storage
yeah,
goes in, and the truck plaza's more
that's correct. And
wanting to come.
when they found this, I've met with them 4 times since this plan's come in, and they're putting everything together for that. And that's why we were talking about in the future, that road goes all the way to 183rd, because all that intersection all will be improved some way or another, you know. Hopefully, in the far future, it'll be an overpass. But they really did this, and then there's another project that is not in our jurisdiction that they're excited about because of the trucks. And then I do know that we have I don't think I can say their name, but anyway, they're a truck and trailer repair, and they are about 50 miles away right now. And they're talking about trying to build a facility up here. Just because the truck traffic just keeps increasing and increasing.
Right, 100%.
I mean, you just look at everything that's been built.
So in addition to that, I know that we, just a little bit ago, we're talking about how 175th Street and 169 is one of the highest risk networks, but it's slated to be number 3 on the improvements list. So
Cat's reading my mind.
Well, and
what?
I said, you're reading my mind. Keep going.
just think about it. That railroad study's going on. And
But we won't even have that back until after we've voted and approved on this.
that's true. There's going to probably be, I hope, by what we're working on right now, 20 more sites that'll be approved before that railroad study's over. So, I mean, that railroad study is a long distance, and they're looking at everything, crossings that may be closed, or how to better control crossings, or widen them, or, what do they call it, a no-horn zone, or what are they, quiet zone. So
what would be, if you can, what would be the main thoroughfares? What would be the main highways, roads that you would be using?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, just simply because we had just looked at all of this, what would be some of those roads?
So Lineage doesn't own or operate its own fleet. In this situation, this would be our customers' equipment. And then again, that kind of speaks to the number of trailer parking spaces. They're going to have a lot of idle equipment sitting there.
Okay.
In fact, if you think about this ratio of trailer parking spaces, which is what's the big number, the 500,
Right.
they have 3.5 trailer parking spaces for every single inbound load. So if you do that math, that doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me, but that's what they want. So I would say that, I would say everybody's going to come out of this, turn left on 175 and probably go to Lone Elm to go north on 35,
no, that.
or maybe go on 69.
Yeah, most of.
Go straight over to Gardner?
Either that or I've just talked to some independents, not for this,
Right.
but a different one. And they really like to travel to 68 to I-35 to go south. That's what they like to do there. If they're going to go north, a lot of times they go straight up
Down here.
into Olathe and take it and start fighting the traffic.
Really? Instead of going over to Gardner and going?
Well, the thing is, if there is some sort of truck plaza or something, depending on if they have to fuel and get a drink and all that, that would be constructed in the Gardner area, then maybe more of them would travel that way. But it's just a preference. If you think you're gonna go over there and you'd be better off and turn, yeah, but we see a lot of semis going into the Olathe area and hit I-35. So, and I think maybe Google, I heard that some of the businesses actually pay them a little bit to route them by them. So, I don't know. I guess it's whatever Google or Elon wants them to do.
Elon's out.
Well, I mean, with his link and all that stuff.
Well, I think
So I think the main things here are in staff's eyes on this is we realize it's a very tall structure. Okay. This facility will be built somewhere. And everything's getting larger and larger and larger and larger. I'd be more than happy to show you guys sometime if you want all the bids that we get in from the state, all the projects from the Commerce Department. And I think we've had to pass on a whole bunch of them because they're literally 500 acres or more. So,
But I think, Pat, I agree with you, but this one is kind of very specific use for cold storage.
That's correct.
With an automated system where the building is structurally supported by the racking so that
yeah.
these fork trucks can go in and shoot up 150 feet and grab a pallet and bring it down. I agree with you, buildings are getting larger, but not at this height. I think it's more of square footage and size of the development versus, this is very unique. Yeah, 145 feet.
You know, we hope that someday that we'll get a hotel and.
Yeah, but a hotel would have
Stayed at
a small footprint.
14 foot in this area.
No, that's what.
Story.
14 stories. I'm
No,
sorry,
I
14
understand.
stories.
Well,
But a hotel is not
but
unattractive, generally, you know what I mean?
But generally, if
Well,
they're
we
that
don't-
small, they're not that big
Yeah,
of a footprint.
right.
They're usually like in a downtown
yeah.
setting. Otherwise, they're usually like 4 to 5 stories tall. I mean,
I think most of the concern is doubling that height from 70 to 140, and how much of a detriment would that be?
and all I can tell you is what staff has determined that in that area, there's gonna be more of these, you know, all of it's gonna be industrial.
which I think the way
And this is a,
Yep.
it's just a very tall building, you know. It looks good. They're gonna employ a lot of people, for our community. I mean, maybe it's not a lot for other communities, but it's a lot for us.
Yeah.
So, and we don't just look at that. We look at that this is a good use for that piece of property, you know. And the area is going to be this type of structures.
and the one south of here is not as tall. The one in Edwardsville is not as tall. Is there other ones in this area?
There's, he just said that a lot of those they acquired. And when they were built, the same scenario probably went on. Let's say that 100-foot one over there. You know, it's tall, it's tall, it's tall. Or we look at the way warehousing's going. You know, it used to be where the warehousing, if you had 200,000 square foot of warehousing, that was huge. Well, now it's million. So everything's getting larger. And that's why we don't think there'll be any detriment to this area, because there will be structures sometime or another, I would think, even larger.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking back years ago to the gardener didn't want the
Intermodal.
intermodal.
Literally thinking the same thing. They turned down the speedway, they turned down
Yeah,
intermodal.
exactly. They turned down the speedway. I mean, and you think of
Right.
all the growth that happened with the speedway. They turned down the intermodal, and look what happened to Edgerton. And like he referenced earlier, that's all coming online, and look where Edgerton's headed.
But is that somewhere you'd like to live?
My son bought and lived in Edgerton. I mean, it didn't affect him at all. I mean, he made money off of his house that he bought and did well with it. And you know that I'm not against, you know that I don't like houses that are slabs. He had a slab house and he did really well with it. I mean, he did well enough with it. He came over to Spring Hill and bought acreage and is doing just fine. I'm just saying that
I'll direct you.
I think that we have to continue to think outside of the box. I'm not saying that I'm falling madly in love with 140-foot storage. I'm just saying we have to continue to think outside of the box, or like Kendra said, it's going to go next door to Olathe.
Well, and there's a reason for the 140 foot, because of technology.
Exactly.
And it's more energy efficient.
And remember, Phelps Judd just brought up, it sits 900 foot back from the highway,
You know, and
you know.
that's
Hey,
a
that-
great segue.
That's far back.
See, that's what I was gonna mention. I mean, I know that the height is an issue, but I think I can live with it. I like the fact that it's hugging the railroad. It's not necessarily hugging 169.
Right.
You know, at least their current proposal is that it's going to be on the southern part of that whole plat, not the, so it's not gonna necessarily hug unless they decide to change it for whatever reason on
They still-
175.
Right, they still have good setbacks, but yes, we are looking at this.
Yes.
Well, and when I asked the question about the traffic, going to the east, that's where the majority of your homes are. I mean, I'm not disputing that we've got homes going to the west, but going to the west, that's headed to the I-35. Going south, that's highway. But going to the east is where there's the schools and more homes being built. I know that, yes, you're gonna see the height, but I'm just saying, we need to start thinking outside of the box. We've got to do our due diligence at thinking outside of the box. We have talked about going to the east, south and east ourselves, but we're not ready to go there. And that's another one that would be railroad. That's another one that would be highway. But we're not there yet. That would be putting the cart before the horse.
So where are you talking about, Cindy? South?
South and east.
You mean down 223rd area? No? Well, we are already.
No, I'm saying,
Oh, I understand
Further.
east, but there are improvements that are going to be made down.
right, I'm just saying, we're not there. They would be putting cart before the horse.
So,
and-
a couple things real quick. I want to jump in real quick. So Chuck started this whole conversation off with something I think we're missing because we're more than doubling what we accept within the zoning. And I think it's the right location, the right zoning. I do think that sightline studies need to be done in some of these key locations, because if we're asking to accept something that's double what is we say is acceptable, I think there needs to be more due diligence done.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say no, I'm not ready to say yes, but more due diligence done on the sightline studies from the intersections, from 191st, from 183rd, because I do think you'll see it from a lot of those major intersections, because it was, and so if we're sure we're gonna see it, I think we owe it to the community to say, hey, how did you guys approve this?
Right.
The rendering, I've looked at 1,000 renderings. I can't make heads or tails at renderings with our site. It looks kind of like a generic rendering of the building. I'd like to see a rendering on our site from from 175th. And
Just
I mean,
sister.
Pat, there's real lines
That's right, the road,
going in
that's
there,
correct, yeah.
public road. None of it makes sense in the rendering. So if we're gonna be asked to approve something that's double what's required, I would ask for a little bit more due diligence on the sightline study, on the rendering, and then on those perspectives. Otherwise, we're gonna hear from the community on why we approved some over 70 feet when the rendering wasn't even speaking to the plan.
But see, I think that's thinking outside of the box, because we've never asked for those type of things before. I think that's a good comment.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought on the whole thing. I'm not against it, I'm not for it. I just think there's more information.
I
to see.
think Josh is absolutely correct, and that's we can't get a bird's eye view of what that was, and we have to explain it to our.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine something like that.
I mean, the
And
volume.
we're not discounting it.
No.
It's just more,
It's the right
that you
area
guys
for
look
it.
at what it would look like, double what the code is. And so with doing this, if it's not a huge problem,
I mean, I'm just saying, if we're being asked to go beyond what's acceptable, double that even, I think, can we not ask for, okay, well then let's see what it looks like from the intersection. I think that's fair.
I'd like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a fair,
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask.
no, I don't either. I think it's fair.
It could be done really quickly.
I think that the area is appropriate for it.
Yep.
I am not comfortable committing today saying that I'm comfortable going over double what the maximum zoning deviance is. So that's where I'm at. So I agree with Josh.
That's where I'm at. I like the location, things to go location, but I can't just say double what we accept. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Because I'm struggling to see it.
Pat, is it possible for you to do
Yes, it's possible.
site rendering and?
Yeah, we would just have this be tabled till either a special meeting or the next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the next meeting. This is a big deal for our community. So I don't want to, here we are at 9:30 at night. I don't want to speed through it. I want to give it the
Yeah.
proper thought.
I will say, just to circle back, I know that on all of the Facebook pages and everything, taxes get brought up so much.
Right.
It is. And so I do love the idea of something like this for helping out with taxes, the tax burden, and especially going forward with what else might come.
Absolutely.
But I agree with not being so blasé about passing something double the height requirement.
And employment opportunities.
100% with that, yes.
Right.
You are
Yeah,
so.
I hope we can make this work. I just
I do
want to make
too.
sure we
Yeah.
get it all.
Yes, like you
right.
said, doing our due diligence for the community.
Especially when they're
because-
talking about if they were to build that 175th Street Road up where it goes over, it might not seem nearly as.
Yeah,
tall,
right,
because There might
yes.
be a lot of land that is
Yeah.
now covering part of it, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not as high. I don't know.
I think if we have a better bird's eye view of
Yeah.
the area, we'll be
Yeah.
a lot,
No, that's
we'll be a lot more informed.
point well taken too, Kat, that may make it, the perception of it may absolutely change with that.
Yeah,
And when you guys, drive by the Walmart building, just imagine a building that is triple the height.
but it'll be back a little
50%
further from
bigger.
the
900.
road.
I don't have a problem.
That's where I think these.
900
I just
feet
haven't seen
on a building this big.
Comparable, so it's hard for me to picture it. in
in
that-
the-
It's hard to picture.
I mean, it's so huge.
900 feet back.
But also if they.
Yes and no,
want to Do an
Show me a
overpass,
location
topography, like it
that has a
changes.
The building that's off of I-35 by the way station and south of the North Garden area, it sits really far back and it doesn't seem as big, just because it is so far back off the road.
Which one is that?
900.
If you go south on I-35 towards
a long
Gardner,
way.
it's technically south.
Hey,
Lakewood, but
hey guys, so we're all kind of splitting up into conversation, so
It's all right.
no, that's not, so do you all want to table? Is there information you want to hear tonight that would let you make a
Pat.
decision? What?
Okay? We know.
We're waiting on
We're
the
waiting.
answer from Pat.
Okay.
Yes, we can have all the renderings and everything exact to this site. They'll do some different elevations on it. I mean, they're gonna be the same elevations. It's gonna be the same height ask. And what I'll do, and working with Judd and all, is we'll make sure that you know exactly how far from the streets it is and all that. We would ask that it be tabled to the next meeting.
Do you
Or
want a month or do you want
the
a
special
month?
meeting or the next meeting.
Do you want a month out or do you want 2 weeks, like through the 18th to 19th?
It'll just be a special meeting or the next meeting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you want,
We're not gonna put a date on it yet,
Amy, what's
the special meeting, because we don't know.
well, that's what I'm saying. So you don't want, if it
that is-
was for a special meeting, you don't want a date attached.
That's correct. We just say a special meeting or the next scheduled planning.
Just table it until the next meeting of the planning commission.
No, he said
Or a
either
special
or.
meeting.
The next meeting of the planning commission, if there's a special one, then it can
Then
do
it
that.
would
And
be-
if there's not a special one, then it'd be the next regular one.
Just put it on
Okay,
next,
so you don't want.
table it.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
table it.
just table it until the next meeting of the planning commission. If there's a special meeting for something else and this isn't ready, then we'll carry it over to the one after that.
All right.
Remind me, I do have a question, whether or not we're still gonna have a meeting on the 3rd of July if anybody's in town or out of town. Because that would be our next
We'll be
meeting
out of
date.
town.
Yeah, that's just,
I'll be
yeah.
out of town.
That'll be in discussion.
Sorry.
Well, we don't want to table it if you're not having a, well, I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, we can just need a
Table
motion
the next
to
meeting.
table it
Yeah,
All right.
That's
Well,
just a-
for the next meeting.
yep.
where'd it go?
I really appreciate you guys answering so many questions. for us,
Yeah,
so we-
I think we want to get this to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Need to do our due diligence here.
I would like to move I would like to move to table SP-25-4 site plan until the next planning commission meeting.
Second that.
Okay? Any further discussion? If not, from the
Aye.
left.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys,
Gentlemen,
Thanks.
we appreciate you answering and being
Yeah.
willing to
Yep,
go through all
very
of
much.
this.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Discussion.
Looking for.
Discussion item.
Boy,
It's not just for
colorful.
not being there.
No, it does look colorful.
It's like a bag of Skittles.
Couldn't figure out.
He's calling in backup.
That's a.
That was a developer of the next discussion. And we knew it was going to be a long meeting, and it's just a discussion item. So we just said, just stay home, I'll call you and you can watch it. So, on this, picture of,
And Pat, if you can clarify, something said it was on the north side,
Yeah.
175th, is that right?
yeah,
Okay, sorry, I kind of got confused by your comments earlier, so we're talking about something on the north side.
yeah, it's on the north side.
Okay. So this is east of Woodland, north of 175th.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's directly over the tracks, and this is what I was talking about earlier. As you can see, the entrances, there's two of them way to the east on it. This development that is being proposed has many mixed uses in it. It will be a planned development, townhomes, duplexes, apartments, and then single families. You have the townhomes. It's kind of hard to read down at the bottom.
Yeah, this is hard.
Yeah.
So what I did is took a picture with my phone and zoomed it out. So, but the blue is townhomes. The duplexes are the orange. Apartments are the green, and then purple, yellow, and blue are the single family units on there. The total of all this is 1,182 doors. This also leads back to what I say a lot of times. These things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So what we're here to discuss is we wanted to talk to you to see the and there is some commercial there in the gray. I forgot. I'm sorry. So wanted to see about this project and with the density and the uses, the connectivity, the trail up at the north actually connects into an access point where we would be able to eventually hook into the Johnson County system. And then the two entrances that come in, you can see there are connecting entrances to future development. We were real careful not to pile a bunch of entrances to the east. I have had several conversations with that landowner over there. And then also another developer that's looking to do that piece. And that's about the amount of entrances that looked like it was acceptable. 3 of them, and it is quite a bit of entrances. So we'll start out, questions, comments, whatever we got.
My first one is in the winter, their sunset's gonna be about 2 o'clock.
Because of that building.
Yep.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thought too when I saw this before. Is
First
that
thing I thought about, if that building goes there,
Yep.
and that sunset
Yep.
at like 2 o'clock, there's sunset.
they're in the shade, and I think that this development may become less attractive to this developer if
They already are.
145 foot.
Did you hear what Pat said? He said they're aware
They're
of it.
aware of it.
Yeah, we
They don't care.
we tell everybody. I mean, we discuss with everybody. These are months-long discussions. This one here is probably, if I look back, I bet we're on 6 months now, just to this point.
Some of those towns.
We're not hiding anything
Walk to work.
from these guys.
Yeah, I mean, the overall layout, I think it's great. It's the whole general, the densities along the rail track.
Yes.
The family
Right.
rental. I mean, I
Oh, yeah.
think,
I think-
from a high level, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Very
I
well
mean,
laid out.
It's a tasteless joke earlier, but that was my only comment. But from
Yeah.
a generic layout, it makes sense.
Yeah, I really like the layout of it.
And they did provide some commercial there, along that with this etched out area. I don't know that it'll
Sleep walk
end up.
to the meat packers as well.
How many how many acres is this, Pat, total?
I've got to zoom this out again because I don't remember to be.
Tell me if they build safe sidewalks.
It's 100. That's okay. I've got.
Go get some
I'll
frozen ice
zoom it
cream
out here.
the other direction.
I think that it was a.
You can hop the train, go anywhere.
Okay. Let's get out of here.
It,
I like this. I mean, this plan, I think, checks a lot of boxes of what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I wouldn't discourage them from it.
No.
What is
like it's 100 and. I think it's
150? Okay, so it's all the Hermes land?
Yeah.
Okay, all of it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
And
the
then-
other side of the railroad tracks, right? On the other side of Woodland?
200 acres. That's right.
So there's a
The railroad tracks are on the left if you
Yeah.
look up there. You cross that and then down 1,000 foot or so and you.
So you've presented these ideas for discussion to us a couple of times now. And I think we seem, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I think
It's 200
we're very receptive about, how many?
225 acres.
225, okay, that's a big plot.
Thank you.
And I think the planning commission is receptive to these mixed use ideas, and it's a very attractive concept.
Yes.
Only question I have, so thanks for the 220 acres. Are these lot sizes like extra small?
They're listed down there. I know they're hard to read, but I can read them to you if you'd like.
Like the single family, are these,
The purple.
Can you clip it and zoom it,
42.
or-
Looks like these ones are 52 and then those
There's
ones are
something-
62, yeah.
I'll pull it up here.
so these aren't tiny lots?
Yeah.
By 55.
So we have, townhomes are 30 by 65, duplexes are 40 by 45, apartments are, 120 by 65 block, that's not, 30 by 55, 40 by 70, and 50 by 90 are the building areas. So.
Existing
The
across.
lot width and depth, 40, 90, 60, 90, 140, 140, 42, 120, 52, 120, and 62, 120. And
Yeah, this is great.
it's all laid in the chart there. I know it's very tough to read.
So it looks like single family, just to repeat what you said in reading it again, 42, 52, and 62 foot lot widths,
Yes.
which are, I think that seems pretty standard for
Yeah,
planned districts.
It looks like
Yeah.
40% multifamily, 60%
What
single.
neighborhood is that up here?
Yeah.
What's that neighborhood up in the far, I guess, right corner?
I'm not sure.
Is it Forest Hills or
Is it? I don't
No.
know. Sure.
Forest Hills is closer to Merlin.
I can't remember. So what's the gotcha in this? Because it looks great.
It's gotta be.
You get shaken.
You're right. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
2:00, lights out.
So what the developer would like is, and this is serious. I mean, we've worked on this for months and months and months, and she's watching right now and has texted me a few things. We want to know, before getting in here that this is something the planning commission can work with. Then the elevations will be coming in. Did we get some elevations? I think we got a few, but we'll start working on the elevational side of it. It's a large, several phase development, but they're very confident that they can walk right through this very quickly. We've already spoke to Waters. The sewer is going to be provided by the new sewer project that's coming. That should start in a few months. Water One everything's good with them as far as water and all. Personally, staff believes that it'd be a good project. I think that they're going to possibly need a little bit more commercial when it all comes about, because I think there'll be a demand for neighborhood commercial. But we can reevaluate that as things go on, because you can see up there above the commercial is duplex type, and the first row could be taken out fairly easily, or even the next, and if they have to grow the commercial. And that's a good plan to put it down, obviously along 175th, but be able to expand it if they need to on that. It's not single-family residential is what I'm getting at. You know, it is surrounded by duplexes, so.
How many stories are the apartments? I forget.
About 14.
Are they 500,000
They
square
could-
foot wide?
Jenny, how tall are your apartments?
Well, I mean, just in our code,
Like 3 stories or?
4, right? It's not very big.
I would just suggest that whoever the developer is, start working with the people that live across the street.
Across the track?
Well, for what?
Across 175. The ones that always complain.
There's 2 driveways, it looks like. I'm not sure if there's a third one in there.
Yeah,
You know them all.
Okay, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about, but I guess I mean, the notifications go out and everything, and
No, I'm
it's
just
county.
saying PR, because
Yeah, no,
they're
I
gonna show
understand
up
what
here.
you're saying. They're
Actually, I think because 175th is such a busy road already, I'm not gonna speak for the residents, but I would think that they would be pretty, open-minded to different types of development coming in here, because they live on a very major thoroughfare, right by the railroad track.
3 stories.
3 stories?
Do we know, what I saw there's a little area for amenities. What types of amenities are
Yeah,
there?
they'll.
We don't have that information.
Not yet.
Oh, okay,
but
okay.
From now on, what we are going to do is with the preliminary plat, they will identify, they don't absolutely have to have the drawings and all, but they will identify on the preliminary plat what they're going to put in. Swimming pool.
Oh, cool.
Water feature, whatever. I don't know, but it will be identified from now on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do they have sufficient green space here to avoid the park fees?
No.
Okay.
No, they'll be paying some park fees.
Nice.
Well, so let me take that back. If we can work with them to get a connection to the Johnson County, which is just right up there it'd be the northwest corner, up through there, and they get that connection and all, we would be willing to trade out some park fees for that, because that's a connection that we've been trying to get forever and ever. And that would connect into the Johnson County Trail System. And we're gonna have a lot of residents that show up. I mean, there's a subdivision over here and you have the people across the street and all, and they'll all be notified when a preliminary plat comes in. And I mean, you know how it goes. We're gonna have a lot of residents that are not in the community, are not a part of the tax base, that, that will, and that's what the system's for. We have to take all that into consideration when they come in, so.
Would they consider moving or extending that trail further south?
And it
To
is,
175?
yes, it's going to be,
Okay.
but the representation right there was to make sure that you knew that it is we're gonna try and connect it up there into that trail system.
All right.
Yeah. And you can see, I mean, it's a good plan, but it's boxy and all, and they'll have to submit the elevations and everything for us, so.
I've got an academic question for you. So with such high density of residential, how does this compare for tax revenue production for the city compared to an industrial site on the same amount?
That, I can figure it, I'll calculate it for you and get it sent out, but my gut is that the one that we just looked at and all will end up paying more taxes than this entire thing.
Wow.
And that's because of the value of that building?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because I think it was a $100 and something million project, or maybe it was 300 and something million, I don't remember now, but,
How would 175th Street overpass if that happens over that railroad crossing? How would that impact this layout?
That's why I said the beginning,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. They've already pushed their entrances to meet that distance. And, you know, we obviously tried to get an extension off of Woodland, which makes sense, you know, or in that area. But with what the study came, or what the initial study said is 1,000 foot, so they've pushed it that way.
Thank you.
And,
Sorry that I missed the beginning.
That's okay. They're gonna extend the trail clear through, and, she said they're gonna extend the trail clear through.
Oh.
So, we have a lot of work on that yet with them to do, you know. Because initially, there was a different plan that came out that really wasn't, they didn't do it, but a different developer did, and then picked up on it and changed it around. So I don't think it's a bad layout at all. I think we can work with this and get it going. And also, it does help support that $10 or $12 million sewer line that's gonna run up through there. We haven't had it bid yet, but I think the estimates were about that. This and several other subdivisions we're working on right now down through there to help support this sewer line. So.
Should be a quick payback on that if the development happens.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about on an average I think it's actually 4,000 gallons a month, where that industrial complex would have used this whole thing probably in one day.
Right.
So,
So on the math, back to the tax revenue, if there's 1,182 units, and if they were $300,000 a piece, that's $354 million. So compared to 180 million for Ayers Rock, that's it. The commercial or the industrial is taxed at like twice the rate, right? Like 14%. So they're roughly equal, and then 7% for residential.
I think you're using some fuzzy math there.
I know, it says the actuary, the statistician.
Not all $300,000.
I know.
So
there's apartment.
Taking a swag here. Okay, I hear you.
And there's duplexes.
you know, the other part of.
But it's not as far off as we think for the tax revenue.
Probably.
Yeah.
The other part of this is, you know, and in talking to this developer and all, you know, 150, 200 jobs, whatever, sitting right there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good possibility of selling 50 houses in the next day.
It helps all the businesses here locally when you
Right.
have people that put
So, but,
jobs.
so she's listening. She appreciates your time. We'll, keep working with them on it. Hope to have a preliminary plat, to you shortly. You know, with the holidays and everything coming up, and then immediately go ahead and start working on final plats. Maybe we can have it at the same time. Some elevations, things like that. You know, it's gonna be standard for the whole area that's being built in the metro area. So, anyway, we'll get that. There'll be a combination of slabs and basements and on and on. So, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Any other announcements?
Can we look at the July date?
It's scheduled for July 3rd right now.
Everybody gonna be available for the 3rd?
No,
No.
I'm not. Josh isn't.
I'm not.
Tess isn't.
There goes the rezoning.
Come on.
The rezoning.
We'll have to have a meeting.
I know, but I've sent
When
out
is our
notice
time?
for that.
For the 3rd? Okay, we'll have to,
We'll look for another
Well-
date.
There might still be a quorum.
yeah, is there gonna be enough for a quorum on the 3rd?
I was gonna say, there's three, that's still 6 out of 9.
Yeah.
Well, everybody have to show up.
What?
Available.
I'm out. We're all out.
I know, that's 3 out of 9.
Great.
Well, there's only
Them and
7
Mary.
here tonight.
Wait, we don't know.
Well,
You're fired.
I can do this.
sure, Royal.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So let's look at it, and if you guys can email Amy, if you really can make it, or
I
not.
could be-
So, just as long as we have enough for a quorum to get the rezoning through,
Well, that way she only has to make 2 phone calls.
Yeah.
I was thinking I wouldn't be here for August, but I guess I will be.
Okay. Any other announcements?
I have a quick thing to share, kind of a community sort of related thing that welcome you guys to be involved with. So I organized a meeting this week between Spring Hill School District administrators and the DeSoto District, CTEC, the Cedar Trails Exploration Center. And what this was a year ago, I read an article about a student community art project where the high school students between 2 high schools designed and then built a sculpture to put at the middle of a roundabout. So I've pitched this idea to a couple of council members and shared it with Allison, and everyone likes it. So the idea is the first target would be the 199th and Ridgeview roundabout. And we would have a student design competition this fall among the art students to design a sculpture. And then it'll also be a collaboration between the 2 districts because we don't have a CTE that's built up like DeSoto's is. It's an impressive facility. So they'll help with the fabrication of it, and including the fabrication of the models. The models are usually just laser cut cardboard, or they could be 3D printed plastic that's painted. And then the students would then present those models to a panel. I spoke with Sharon Mitchell yesterday about it, and we're probably going to put together a new panel since the Arts Council is disbanded. But a panel of judges with representatives from the district, the community, the probably local artists, maybe 7 to 10 people at most. They will judge these submissions, pick a winner, and then I assume then it would maybe come here or maybe it would go straight to the city council. Yeah, so it'd go straight to the city council for them to approve. And so every time I hear about a new roundabout, I'm excited because I think there's a runway here to do multiple projects.
Art everywhere.
And so anyways, I think it's really interesting. And in the DeSoto district, they're getting a lot of traction with this. They're on their 3rd sculpture now. And so I think it's something we can do. And I think it'll just be a great opportunity for the students to learn, to pitch in front of the city council, to work with local businesses once the installation comes along. And then and then the city can have insurance for us so that when a semi drives it over, we can replace it.
Some of the schools still do.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be bolted down well. But anyway, so I'm pretty excited about that. And that roundabout is such a blank canvas. It'll be fun to start with that.
I'll tell you what, if there's anybody, who else been to that DeSoto facility?
It's
It's
nice.
phenomenal.
Yeah, it is.
Phenomenal. I was like, DeSoto, how'd they get such a huge
I know.
facility?
And the
30,000 square feet.
who is?
Bring out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ours will be online in a few years.
Yeah.
And then secretly, I think our collaboration could end at that point. But we'll see.
Anything else?
Good effort.
To follow up with Kendra's, who's gonna bring you come out of Price Chopper's driveway going towards the east. That trail that you see right there as you come out, well, that is crumbled back.
Yeah.
There's signs up that say it's city property.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blackhawk.
Yeah. But this is, the whole trail. Now, the pharmacy, you just turn right there. As you look down that one, it's grown in weeds and it's all crumbled. It's sightly.
A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yeah. Aye.
All those opposed? Adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, how did I get so old?
That's what happens with a 3-hour meeting. You just aged in dog years.